Raton, New Mexico, where we are honored to host residents for this important public safety town hall. Thank you for your patience in getting started. Thank you to Mayor Segota, our friends at the city for this venue, and the hard work of the incredible staff that has assisted us in bringing us all together here today. My name is Benjamin Baker, and I have the privilege of working for you in our governor's office, advising her on matters public safety. And it is an honor and a privilege to be here hosting you tonight. We have taken town halls related to public safety all over our state this summer and fall. We've been in Las Cruces, Espanola, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Gallup, Carlsbad, Farmington, Hortales, Ruidoso, Mescalero, Gallup, and last week in Alamogordo. And tonight we are honored to be with you here in Raton. We have experienced a similar outpouring of excited community members to share their insights, experiences, and perspectives related to public safety. We are eager to engage with this crowd tonight in the same respectful, constructive discourse, moving us closer to our shared goal of a safer New Mexico to live, work, and raise our families in. Before we get on with the introductions, I want to recognize and introduce a couple of critical parts of our communication team, and they are Kim Corwin and Cynthia Garone, who will be providing ASL translation off to my right so that all may receive our message. If we can get a quick round of applause for them. Work here tonight. Additionally, simultaneous Spanish language interpretation will be provided for this town hall by Denise Garcia, who is usually in the back, and she'll be providing this important service. Thank you, Denise, for providing this service. Without further delay, it is my pleasure to invite City of Raton Mayor James Segota to the podium to share some opening remarks. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I want to thank all of you for venturing out on this balmy northeast New Mexico evening. Nothing like a little chill in the air to get the bones going and get your minds going. So I appreciate every one of you for stepping out tonight. And by you being here shows that you have a commitment to our community, that you want to be in a safe environment. And that's what we're here for tonight, to hear about how we can come together as one and make not only Raton a safer place, but the entire state. So at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you all Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham.
That is very nice, and I really appreciate it. Public officials, myself included, have a wonderful job, that they can be tough, but there isn't anything better than coming into a community for active, concerned citizens, and the reason I'm here really is to hear from you. A couple of things, and then I'm going to sit down. One, we've had 11 or 12 of these public town halls, public safety town halls. We've been also doing cabinets in your community, and we can come back and do that. We bring the entire cabinet. We solve problems in real time. We work on ideas and strategies that people want in their communities and just get them done right where we're there. In this public safety town hall, I work for you, and anything you want to talk about, we're going to work to answer or get the right folks quickly to engage. But I'm hoping that folks primarily do want to talk about crime and public safety and risk. But again, we work for you, and we'll stay as long as you want me to stay. And we'll talk about anything that people want to talk about. Two, I embarked on these specific public safety town halls because I am struggling to get policymakers to help us enact new laws that we believe would make us all safer in our communities and create real accountability by a number of populations that I don't think have been accountable since 2016 or before. And it took us a while to get here, but we are here. I know that not all communities are the same, but this is moving. And I am certainly concerned enough that I'm working to get the public engaged on the things that we agree on and the things that we don't, to make sure that you know what you can do about that disagreement that's fair, because the legislature works for you. And I want to make sure that you feel like you've got an outlet to deal with any issue in the way that you would like to deal with it. Here's why I think public safety is a problem. While a lot of states are beginning to see progress, both in repeat crime, violent crime, and juvenile crime, New Mexico seeing some modest reductions in property crime in the bigger cities, but it is so modest, it pales to what we're seeing in juvenile crime around the state, in repeat theft, property damage, and real risk. And to put this in perspective, let me tell you what I now know. And the reason it took me so long to know it is that in New Mexico, in large part, we don't share public safety data and information, and the courts don't routinely share public safety data and information. So as an example, halfway through my term, it's clear to me that we aren't doing nearly enough to require ballistics work in an investigation for all of our police departments statewide. So imagine living in a place like Albuquerque, where you have, in one neighborhood over a weekend, you could have 30 shots fired. And you have no idea about that bullet, that gun, or any other information. That's no longer the case in the state. We're requiring that. We require more data sharing, and I have to say, policing in Colfax County and in Raton has been really helpful to us. And in fact, I hope in the introductions we'll talk a little bit about our Organized Crime Commission, which is having great impact. And you've got a proud member participating not just on public safety issues here, but doing the work that makes the entire state safer. So just to give you a sense about how well we work with a number of folks in your community and the impacts that they make. Here are some data points and a couple of bills that I think are vitally important to the state. One, since 2016 in New Mexico, nearly, and I'm still scrubbing new data, so nearly 17,000 cases have been dismissed by judges in New Mexico for competency. That means if somebody is arrested for committing a crime, could be a misdemeanor, could be a felony, that case is not tried because the person either isn't sober, so drugs, alcohol, both, or has a mental health issue, or both those things, sobriety issue, an addiction issue, and a mental health, including for things like PTSD. You do not try that case in far too many jurisdictions. I don't see a lot of evidence of that in this judicial district, but we see a lot of that evidence in a lot of other places, and it's not just the big cities. Of these 17,000 cases, when they ask you, and they nearly all the time do, the judge says you got to be in a program, you check into a program, there are no requirements that you stay in a program, so that you're getting addiction treatment or mental health support, none. So if you don't go, even after committing a crime, there's no court order to compel you to go to the program. Of those nearly 17,000 cases, well more than 5,000 are for serious crimes and repeat offenders. And when I mean repeat offenders, the same person can go before the same judge 30 up to 40 times a year. And in 2 hours, they're turned right back, usually onto the streets, and they are recommitting. Of those 5,000 plus cases, well more than 3,000 are for serious felonies: attempted murder, rape, drug trafficking, human trafficking, kidnapping, carjacking, serious aggravated assault, property damage. Significant crimes that these people in that vein commit over and over and over again. Last data point, and those are not the only issues, that we have fewer people in our major jails in New Mexico today than we had more than a decade ago. And while we are investing in law enforcement, so we've provided retention bonuses and marketing strategies so you can hire new positions, it's just under 130 million and return to work, and we're interested in more. We think investing in public safety and law enforcement officers and first responders is critical to our overall well-being and success. This community takes advantage of that. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, all the local electeds. We want more. We have invested well more than $1.5 billion in public safety in the past several years, and we're happy to do more. We didn't do it in this state for a long time, which I do think in large part also created some of these imbalances. So we need to change the competency law so that not everyone is just dismissed into no accountability. I can't think of another state in America right now that hasn't done just that. Commitment is the civil side of this equation. There's a debate in the legislature, it's an important one. And I do believe that by and large, both chambers, both parties are going to lean in and send to me early in the session a giant appropriation for behavioral health. And we need it, because we spent 8 years dismantling it, and it's been really hard to put it back together. And none of us have enough access to healthcare, behavioral health, prevention, primary care. That's still a fact. It's a terrible fact, but it's true. But it is not true that we don't have commitment beds, acute care, not true. We have well more than 100, 150 available spaces right now, but you can't make someone 18 or over go for addiction services or mental health treatment. Can't make them go to a community program either. If there's not a process for a select few seriously mentally ill and or drug addicted, repeat violent criminals who can get treatment, we aren't going to get at this. This is not for the general public. Commitment bill is narrow, focused, and stops this revolving door. Again, red states, blue states, neighboring states, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, California, Oregon, New York, Florida, all have these laws. We haven't adjusted in 20 years. And the last time we tried to do mandatory treatment in any context, there's no requirements that you stay with the program in order to divert from jail. Once that's decided, you can just volunteer to go, but you don't have to stay the course. They don't work anymore. Last thing, there's also a whole slew of other bills. First-degree murder, felon in possession. I think that we should enhance those penalties. Drug dealing, trafficking, human trafficking, being very clear that those are crimes that you will be arrested for and prosecuted for. We lost 2 officers in the last community that I just did a public town hall from felons in possession of a firearm. Why weren't they incarcerated? This makes no sense to me. There's a ton of bills that are all aimed at smart, common sense, evidence-based requirements that we all get held to the same standards. We treat each other with respect. We're all good neighbors, and our neighbors expect us to follow the laws on the books. And that's what we're trying to accomplish in this legislative session. I'm going to end with this. And I understand it. I didn't, frankly, until this year. So I apologize to you. It should have made more sense to me. But most New Mexicans think I can just unilaterally change the law. We just did a large survey, and 90% of New Mexicans want us to do something about homelessness. There's this intersection, competency and commitment. If you're just re-released, you're living on the streets, more crimes are committed, more human trafficking, more juvenile crime occurs. It's all of the above. That's not the same thing as saying poor people who find themselves unhoused are committing crimes. But they are often victimized by the very criminals that I am talking about. But New Mexicans think I can just say, this is the new plan. They also believe I can call judges and tell them they can't do that anymore. I cannot. And I think with, fires and emergency orders where I can say, Hermit's Peak, Calf Canyon, all the mayors have to do this, all the commissioners have to do this, all the firefighters do it this way, that somehow that confused far too many New Mexicans that the failure here is just one politician's unwillingness. Not true. But we all have to work together, and our voices need to be heard by the people who do have the power to do something about it. And that's the legislature. And I promise I'm sitting down. I'm sure you all recall that, because I think we have a growing crisis. I called a special session and they didn't do it. Now they have the right to do that. But I'm hoping with these town halls that your ideas and your issues, and maybe I can get you to be involved in a way that feels right to you, that we can do better by New Mexicans in the state and pass some bodies of laws that can create accountability and safeguards and guardrails and do more to protect New Mexicans in every community. And then I really am going. And to reflect many of the values that I think are here in this community. And I believe they ought to be felt and present in many more communities across the state. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for sharing your evening with us. And I'm going to sit down. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for those introductory remarks. I'm going to get you introduced to the panel seated up here, and we're going to start on my right, of course, bearing the mayor and the governor, as they've already been introduced. Sheriff, would you mind introducing yourself and where you represent?
I'm Sheriff Leonard Baca, here with Colfax County. I have 28 years of law enforcement experience. I spent 15 and a half working for the city of Raton, and the last 10 working for Colfax County as under sheriff, currently serving the sheriff's office.
Good evening, everyone. Marcus Montoya, 8th Judicial District Attorney. 8th Judicial District is Taos County, Colfax County, and Union County. I am now in my 6th year, and so it's great to see a lot of many familiar faces and hopefully get to meet a few more tonight. Thank you.
Gina?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gina DeGlassi. I'm the Acting Cabinet Secretary for the Department of Health.
Good evening, everyone. Jason Bowie, Secretary for the Department of Public Safety. I do this at every meeting because I think it's important to recognize our state police officers that are lined up against the back wall. We can get a round of applause for them for just a moment, please. I appreciate that. Not just the officers themselves. Every district has a district commander, and they have a tremendous role in the districts, every district across the state of New Mexico, for whatever problem we have, whether it's a wildfire, floods, whatever the challenge is, the district commander mobilizes all of our resources across the entire state. And so I really appreciate the district commander being here. Victor B, where you at? I saw you there. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Troy Weisler, Chief, New Mexico State Police. Cabinet Secretary Bowie already introduced everybody, so but I look forward to being here this evening and having this conversation. I will give a special shout out to Lieutenant Boone. Y'all do have a hometown area person that's in charge of the state police up here. This is District 2 for the state police, and y'all got a great crew up here, so thank all them for being here, and thank our governor's security folks from state police being here as well. Thank you.
Commitment to this community and your willingness to serve here tonight. I'm going to recognize a couple of distinguished guests who are with us here in attendance, starting with City Commissioner Mark Honeyfield, Wendy Schuster, Desiree Trujillo, City Clerk. We also have Michael Ann Antochi, which I'm sure I just butchered your last name, so I'm very sorry about that. Chief of Staff and Treasurer, Mayor Pro Tem Lori Chatterley, John Garcia, Raton Police Chief, there in the back. Welcome, Chief. Jerry Hogrith has joined us from Angel Fire Police Department. Gary Todd Tatum, Colfax County Commissioner and Fire Chief, welcome. And Thier, who is a member of the Better City Economic Development, and Scott Berry, former city manager who now runs the rehabilitation program. I want to say welcome to public safety professionals from all disciplines, fire, safety, and corrections, public safety telecommunicators who are well represented here tonight. Welcome to members of the area business community as well. We have members of our cabinet here from the executive branch of government, public safety, corrections, homeland security, military affairs, health. Thank you very much for your willingness to be here and to serve tonight. Special thank you to the men and women serving in the United States military, and especially our veterans. Thank you for serving this country. If we could pause for a round of applause for them, please. Last but by no means least, thank you to the citizens of New Mexico, Colfax County, and Raton, community members from this area. Thank you very much for being here and welcome. I'm going to talk a little bit about the format so we can jump right into it. There are incredible staff members from our office at both kind of edges of the theater here. They have microphones available. Once we begin, what we'd like you to do is raise your hand if you'd like to either ask a question or make a comment. You will be recognized. If you could please lead with your name, that would be really helpful for those of us following up on the action items here. Additionally, if you would be so kind as to fill out one of the intake forms, it's supremely helpful for us as we track and manage the progress of the ideas that are generated here tonight, and we can follow up on that. We would appreciate it. The goal, as I mentioned earlier, and as the governor reiterated, was to stimulate robust discussion and idea generation surrounding public safety in this community. Please let us know what your ideas are and raise your hand and you shall be heard. We will stay until everyone has been heard. If we can align the focus of our things with public safety, that would be helpful to keep us focused on the task at hand, but obviously we know that there are many intersecting issues surrounding public safety, and we want to hear about the unique things happening here in Raton and Colfax County. This amazing group up here on the stage and the folks gathered with us are here to hear your concerns. Please remember the ground rules associated with decorum, including respect for every single person who is here. Feel free to applaud things that you find worthy of that, but please refrain from booing or heckling of any sort so we can keep this a constructive place where ideas can be shared freely. It is much appreciated. And with all of those logistics out of the way, it is now time for us to begin the public portion of this public safety town hall, and I will ask who among us will be the first to raise their hand and get this discussion started. We have a hand raised down here, gents, right in the middle.
Madam Governor, thank you. My name is Retired Magistrate Warren Walton. My question, I've got two of them. They're not related at all, so I'll let everybody else ask questions. I'll come back to my second one. Last year, Senate Bill 271 was signed, which allowed judges to consider changing or revoking a defendant's release conditions if the defendant commits a second felony. Before 2016, as you mentioned, judges who were voted in by their communities were expected and trusted to make the determination as to whether a defendant was held in jail in the first appearance in court. There was no need to wait for a second crime to be committed. As we all have seen on the news, many innocent people have been harmed by defendants who have been released by the courts. The court's hands are essentially tied with what was voted through. What can your office do to revoke the 2016 amendment to the Constitution, require rebuttable presumption, and give all judges the right to hold defendants whom they determine to be dangerous or flight risks?
First of all, sir, thank you very much for your service and your questions. So the bill that you've described is what we refer to as no bond hold. If it doesn't drive everyone here crazy, because my team, they'll start poking me. I'm learning a lot. Being a governor, you got a chance to learn at times. So one, we changed our Constitution. We do that by passing a resolution. Governors have no role in a legislative resolution. So you can't veto it. You really don't even get involved. They just pass this. And then the question goes to the voters. The voters were given a question about our old way in which we did bail bonding, how we were holding people. And the question before all of us, I voted for it, was that more poor people were being held than not poor people. It's a constitutional issue, and the one way to fix it was to clarify in our Constitution about who gets help. On its face, and that's why it passed by the voters, overwhelming sense. I'm going to disagree with you just a bit, and again, I don't have to agree with you. You're an expert, you were in the courtroom. I am not an expert, not in the courtroom, so I want everyone to hear that out loud. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't do what you don't do. But I do think our judiciary, with the tools they were using, didn't really report data. I think a lot of this has been sort of self-inflicted on some of the competency rulings. But be that as it may, I don't think their hands are that tied because other states passed the same kind of constitutional changes so that people without money have a fair shot of being released to their own recognizance if, in fact, they're not a danger or repeat offender. We just didn't seem to get it right. I might be wrong about that, but I wanted you to know what my opinion is. And so we made some changes, right? We required an updated tool. We required data sharing in their budgets. We did new training. And then, as you know, I've been asking for something called pretrial detention. What that means is it's the federal system, that it is the public defender's job, the defendant's job, to rebut the presumption that you shouldn't be in jail. So there's an option here, but you have to make the case. Right now it's reversed. The DA has to make the case, and there are a lot of cases, that you should be held. And even when they do, by and large, in far too many jurisdictions, again, this one, we didn't see a lot of evidence that they were the same sort of outcomes. That's why I think that judges do have discretion, because it's not the same everywhere. DAs will either get rebuked in, right, saying they need to be held, or they don't bring the evidentiary hearing requests for someone to be held. So I want pretrial detention. And again, maybe half this group wants it and half it doesn't, but I can tell you two things now. One, I think there's very little appetite in this legislative body to pass a resolution to repeal the constitutional amendment. I would be open to that, which now that I've said that out loud probably makes my crime agenda even harder to pass. Only because I think we do need a bit of a reset. Barring that, which I don't think they're going to do, I really want pretrial detention. I do want to say, sir, that if you helped us on that no bond hold, thank you. Because it is making an impact. It's not as big as we would have hoped, but dangerous or repeat offenders are in fact being held. We can see a change to the good in that data. And I appreciate that got passed. I signed it right away, but it was that was all I was going to get. And so which you have to negotiate. So I took it and signed it, but my preference is pretrial detention, and I plan on introducing it again. And I will give you, even with your help, I give that a 70-30. I'm not mad at the legislature. Look, I believe in 3 branches of government. You don't want one person in power. That's not the way it's supposed to work. It's not how the Constitution works. It's my job to be persuasive. I cannot persuade them. This is one where far too many legislators who supported that constitutional amendment fear will go too far, and I have not been able to persuade them. But I am going to introduce it, sir, again. And if you're interested in helping us, particularly given your bench experience, I would welcome any support or strategies about how we could talk about it differently, because I'd love to get that passed. But thank you. It was a great, and if I'm over-explaining, this guy, Ben Baker, kicks me. You can't quite see. I do that just to make sure I stay on track and focused, but if I'm sharing far too much information, no one will hurt my feelings if you say, we know all that. And so please, and I would not feel like that was disrespectful at all. This is your time. So I want to put that out there. But if that explanation was helpful, I hope it was.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to go next?
You get a hand up over here. I'm over helping. I'm going to get into trouble.
Thank you for coming. My name is Rich Coons. I'm a professional Santa, so I worked down in Albuquerque during the season. I was actually in the shooting in the Cottonwood Mall last year, and so I understand what you're talking about. Now, to give you a perspective, I grew up in the barrios of LA, next to Compton and Watts, and I see Albuquerque very similar to that during the 60s and 70s. There needs to be something done. What I am not seeing is here. Maybe it's just my smiling face or where I grew up, but no one scares me here. What is it that we can do here to change things?
Well, you can, if you agree with any or some, or frankly none of this agenda, just inviting you to call, participate, it really does make a difference. And here's my fear, and I'm not trying to scare anyone in Raton or Colfax County. If I'm doing that, honestly, shame on me. But crime travels. A lot of the drugs are coming in on I-25 and I-40. We get a lot of them from the Arizona, and this is not to say that any of our border issues are good enough. We have guard and police there. I know most people don't think we do. We do. But our data from the Organized Crime Commission shows that bigger areas, bigger patches of border, more criminals, not that they're all crossing the border, but just you get drugs, right? They all get in. They're mailed in by the Chinese. There is no dearth of trafficking, including human trafficking, which is far more profitable and prevalent in America today than drug dealing. It moves on I-25 and I-40. So I worry about that because we've had an uptick in crime in places like Tucumcari that have resulted in devastating murders. It is moving into far too many communities faster than it should. I don't think any of us are going to be exempt, and I'm sure some folks have already felt the sting with vacant properties of property damage, or people who don't look like they belong in that private piece of property. We have the highest growth in folks who are unhoused right now, I think the study says, in America. I don't have concrete data because the way in which we do these intakes makes no sense. We rely on the Housing and Urban Development Federal Department. I'm not going to rely on that anymore. We're going to do it at the state level. We're undertaking much of that work right now. But I stop all over the state. I won't be able to do that here. I don't think you have as big a problem, and I won't get home till 11, and I leave at 6:30 in the morning, so I'm sorry. But when I come back here, if there's someone who seems struggling or unhoused or who's panhandling, I get out of the car, and I ask if I can help you. 9 times out of 10, 90% of the time, it is someone who is not from New Mexico. That's not that that's a judgment, but why are you here? And the people who've been on these stops with me will tell you, because it's permissive here. I can smoke fentanyl on the streets, I can break into a building, I can steal food and goods for shelter, I don't have to go to a shelter, and nothing will happen. And I do think that we're going to find, when we do these intakes and do a real broad assessment, that there is a perception that New Mexico is a place where people aren't going to bother you. Lastly, I rejected this for years. People are not busing people. Yes, they are. And in fact, some of our mayors, not this mayor, and thank you, there are mayors in New Mexico, and first I'm going to say something that doesn't sound very fair, and then I'm going to defend them, who will tell you that if they have a few unhoused individuals that show up in their communities, they put them in a van and drive them to Santa Fe and Albuquerque. Because they don't have any resources. You're a small town of 200, but that doesn't help Santa Fe and Albuquerque deal with this problem either. And there are programs all across America that you can be accountable. You'll go to a shelter, you'll go to this program, or we'll give you $100 and a bus pass somewhere. And New Mexico is the place du jour. And I'm very worried about that. So I worry that that stuff will take hold here. It is moving into rural areas. And I'm also worried about the number of firearms that are already illegal. Not everyone agrees with, where I am. on any number of gun violence proposals, and that's a good democracy where we find a way to the middle somewhere. But too many illegal firearms are in the hands of our young people in ways I have never seen in this state before. And kids are going to come to the legislature who are tired that these kids keep getting to come to school. And they're selling guns, and they're doing it on the internet. And so they have a black market. It's really easy for them to get a handgun. And it's escalating in New Mexico so fast, no community will be exempt from that because kids are seeing it online. And we can't protect them in these lovely communities like yours if they're getting online. So that's why I'm worried about all of us. And you can help by talking to legislators about what you think is the most valuable things for us to do. And we can leave at the mayor's office and on your website a list of all the bills we're proposing. And again, you won't hurt my feelings if you say, I like these three, I think you're dead wrong on all these other ones. I want you to participate. That's how we get things done.
One other question.
Yeah.
My background's in high technology, and I usually help most of the people here with scams and cyber attacks and so forth like that. Is there any bills? I know even the city has gotten caught in that. Is there any bills or anything that you're proposing to help us report them or process them easier?
I don't know about the reporting, but there's going to be a whole slew of bills aimed at AI, about accountability for predators on the internet, for particularly at juveniles and young people. There'll be an investment in cybersecurity. I think that they're going to redefine. Does everybody know what swatting is? You do? Okay, then I won't over-explain. And thank you for that. To define swatting so that we can prosecute those offenders, and a whole bunch about regulating AI. And if you'll give us your card, and again, I always worry when Ben says, give us your name. The governor wants to know who you are. We just want to make sure we can get good resources, if you're willing, and we can follow up. And if you're willing for us to have your phone number, I'll send you every bill that's being proposed. And I'd love your review about what you think about these bills, because ultimately when they get passed, I have to decide whether to sign them or not. And I could use an extra pair of hands.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Coons, just one quick follow-up thing. One of the things that's important, I think your experience and maybe many other folks that are here tonight can share and relate to. When we go to the legislative body, the notion is to propose and pass state laws that will be applied in every community in New Mexico, irrespective of crime problem or absence, size of population. So the fact that you're telling us here today, and I'm grateful that this is your experience, is that when you're in Albuquerque, you're unsafe and involved in these shootings, and when you're in Raton, you are not in that same peril. That's important because there is one law. There is only one law for the state of New Mexico, and it's really important because I think sometimes our legislative body has a hard time relating to the fact that not every community is the same, but the law has to be applied universally. And so we need to start at a place that gets us to safety, irrespective of what your community may enjoy at the moment, because as you have seen, and that's excellent testimony, and I'd look forward to following up with you, that can change by geography, and it can be a couple hours. So thank you very much for that, sir.
And I watched LA change. They started off with the laws, and it finally took the people to change the situation.
Very good. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
He'll bring the mic to you, sir.
Thank you.
Can I tell you why we hold them? A couple of folks in Albuquerque ran out with the microphones. I don't understand that exactly. So if we seem like we've lost our minds and that it's not personal, we just started to do that as a matter of course. Or they would take the microphone and walk away with it and then not give it back and nobody else could talk. So I don't think that's going to happen here, but that's why we do that.
Yeah, my toddler likes to stick it in his mouth and try to sing. I'm like, you gotta hold it out a little further. But anyways, my name is Cy Trujillo. I'm the chairman of the Colfax County Commission. Just thinking overall, as far as what you could do statewide that would help us, especially from a more rural county. And I'm sure you could work with New Mexico counties, is help with the judicial side of the things. So with us, funding is always a concern for us in funding the sheriff's office. And I asked the sheriff to please speak to any of this, but we have to, secure the building. We have a whole GRT that gets intercepted and paid for just the judicial center. Our ICIPs, our capital outlays, the request is always for vehicles. I mean, we have stuff that's been on our ICIP that we just keep kicking down the road. And this is because the sheriff's vehicles having to run and go get, if he has to go to San Miguel County or wherever, and then come back, he can go through a vehicle like nothing. Our insurance costs keep going through the roof. It's almost to the point where it's not worth insuring the vehicles from a comprehensive standpoint. But that's something where if the courts could, or the state could give the courts money to pay for that and kind of carry their own way, instead of making it a statutory obligation on the county, we could better turn around and fund our sheriff's office because his statutory obligations are going to be the priority, besides 911 services. So it takes away from, for instance, like the Moreno Valley, for instance, if there's a call, it's probably going to be 45 minutes before a sheriff's deputy is able to get up there. And if they have to turn around and come back out here outside of the county limits, out in my district, that's going to be another 45 minutes to an hour and a half before our constituents get services. But if you're able to take that cost and the courts carry their cost to speed it back, maybe we could help our constituents that way.
Okay, I'm really agnostic about whose operating budgets we invest in so that they have enough resources. Particularly for judicial branches and public safety, I don't think we've tried to fully fund every single request. So the good news, Mr. Chairman, again, we have a lot of money. I'm very proud of that. I don't want to waste it, but public safety is a real key place where we can do much better. So the sheriff needs new vehicles, just tell me how many. And again, I'm agnostic. And the courts sometimes don't have the right administrative folks to process all the money in the way that you might want. So check out where that doesn't have to be universal statewide. How you all do operations and capital. Again, I usually just defer to whoever's making a request. My goal has been to fund like the top 3 in total from local government. Here's the caveat. Last year, we had about $1.6 billion for capital. Does that sound right? Dan, my chief of staff's here. Between the legislative share and the governor's share, that's a whole other complicated political machination that probably no one has time for today. New Mexico's got a pretty antiquated way in which we do capital. But if I end up with discretionary money, say 160 million, counties come to me and cities with about 12 to 15 billion in requests. So then I try to leverage legislators and then try to fully fund as many as I can. Just water treatment systems, we need to spend a couple of billion. So I don't want that to be a deterrent. Vehicles are easy, I can figure that out. Operating costs, I think we can do better for Colfax County. Just bring me these requests and I'll just commit to you right now, I'll get them done, as long as they're not 12 billion. If it's 12 billion, I gotta come back here, we gotta figure it out. But you should expect me to get you everything you need. All right, yes, sir.
Hi, B.F. Meharry. I'm a resident of Raton. Many other places in my life because my parents were in the military. But everything that you're doing, everything that's been said is really great. And I know it doesn't, everybody points at you. Who's ever in charge? Whether it's the president, the governor, it's always his or hers fault because this didn't happen, that didn't happen. They don't look and see that the people on your left and the people on your right, which are their different parties, have a lot to do with it. But my question, the only one that, well, there's a bunch of them, because I wrote on the thing there, they wanted to know what was what, and I said everything. I've watched, like, when our people are running for office, and I'm sorry, our sheriff is there, but I've never seen anything go on. I've only been here 7 years. My wife is born and raised in New Mexico. But, well, I was born in Texas.
I'm going with the other spouse here. I'm sorry, sir, you lost. She showed me your muscle, you're out. I'm going with the New Mexican.
But I listened to the sheriffs from different counties, especially the southern counties, and they're all, my question is, why don't they seem to get along? Why don't, these sheriffs are in charge of our county law enforcement. And it seems like they think that they are the god of that law enforcement for those counties. Most of them I know are the opposite party than from what you and I are, but we're not here for that. I'm just questioning why our sheriff knows more than this than I do. Why do they be like that? Or don't the sheriff's departments, doesn't the county, for those particular law enforcement people in this state, have a charter and or a Bill of Rights that they have to follow? They say, well, we're not going to do this and we're not going to do this, and the governor can't tell me what to do. My question is, why?
I'm going to take a stab. I might have the sheriff. I mean, I'm going to get myself into trouble. Ben, take a deep breath. You know, I'm a lifelong New Mexican. I worked for a Republican governor for 8 years. I got along with all the parties and everyone in the legislature. And if you had told me, even a decade ago, that we would all in America be so divided and so angry, and that we could be that way in New Mexico, I would have just vehemently disagreed with you. It won't happen. It is happening, and I blame the internet for a lot of it, and the fact that it's okay to not tell the truth or defend the principles that you have. But, and I'm going to use myself as an example, and there was a sign in Raton, I'm not opining negatively or not, I believe in free speech, that said, you know, impeach MLG. I am a little mad at Fox News. I don't mind my initials, but now everybody just calls me MLG, like we're best friends, so I guess that's okay. New Mexicans are, I probably related to 1.5 million of the 2.1 million New Mexicans, so maybe that's fair. And you have a right to believe that, and people have gone to court. It's been rejected. And I have members in counties and cities and elected to law enforcement who have chosen in our state and others not to enforce laws they disagree with. And that's not how it works. I don't get to, it's at my peril for me to tell the federal government they've got a new federal law, and I just say, well, I'm not going to do that. Right? You don't get to do that. Now, you can challenge the law and go to court. I can I can try to change the law, but I can't ignore it. But by the same token, I'm going to pick on you, and he's done absolutely nothing to me. Unless that was your sign, in which case I need to talk to you later. I'm teasing. If you don't have a sense of humor about some of it, hate speech is terrible, anger is terrible, disrespect, fibbing, all that. Having a sense of humor, because none of us are perfect, that's okay. But sheriffs got really mad around the country and really mad at me about COVID as a general matter. And they said, we're not going to enforce any of the governor's emergency orders. And again, if you look at New Mexico right now, 50% of New Mexicans think I was the greatest governor ever in COVID. And 50% of New Mexicans think that I should go down in the history books as the worst. And I'm not mad at anyone. They're entitled to their opinions and their experiences. Not everybody's experience was equal during COVID. It just wasn't. And I hope I never have to do anything like that, or any governor of any party anywhere in America again. But it created real tension, and this notion that people come to the sheriffs and say, are you going to stand for me in your community, or that governor? Remember the governor in Michigan, that woman? That's a lot of pressure on people who are elected. My opinion is that sheriffs and police leads, chiefs, have to enforce the laws. If you don't like the law, you have every right in the next session to try to get it changed. But I have some of that here. It's rampant in the country. And I can't impeach a sheriff either, in the same way he can't impeach me. And so it's just created some tension. But that's why I feel like, and I hope that this doesn't sound Pollyanna, that's kind of a loaded question, sir. But I appreciate that we're willing to have a dialogue here. Get to know everyone here better. I feel like things are easing in New Mexico. I would say that for the first time in a long time, a Democratic, maybe more progressive, elected person is really on the same page for 98% of what sheriff and police leads want in the state. And we are aligned. And we are working well together in ways that I don't think we have in a long time as a general rule of thumb. Because we're clear that we all have to make people safer. And we need the tools to do that. But I think this country is having some of those issues. And maybe this is a community that can help New Mexicans grow better in a design that when we pass a law, even if a sheriff or a police chief or a mayor or the chair of a county official doesn't like it, they make sure that they uphold it. And a governor that may not like something that the president-elect might undertake to do, that we all learn to use the constitutional tools that are fair and transparent to move through it without being angry and rejecting that we don't have an obligation to follow through. And I think there isn't a better state in America to be more nonpartisan, and just take care of each other than New Mexico. But thank you for saying that. And Sheriff, did I say something that you disagree with? And he's good, he knows me. You think that's a fair assessment and that we're getting better?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm trying harder too. It's both sides. You know, I need to try harder, we all are, but I feel like New Mexico right now is in a pretty good spot in that regard. I would tell you this, I don't know that we're in a perfect spot. And I think we're going to be tested in the next 12 to 24 months in America. And that's not intended to push this community one political bent or another. I just think we're all going to have to be our best selves and take care of each other and do what's right for New Mexico. And I feel good that we can do that better than most places. Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Sue Martin, and I'm a citizen of Raton for almost 50 years now. And I would like to address the problem of landlord versus squatter rights, because I was a victim in this in the past few years. I couldn't believe it. I have a rental property that got broken into. And one day I went over there, and the back door was locked, and I went in, there was all this stuff laying around. And in through the back gate comes a young lady, sees my car, she backs out. So finally the light bulb goes on in my head. Sue, you have squatters. I chased this girl and her two friends down the alley. I won't tell you what I was yelling, but I would like to know, where did this change? Because I was a landlord for 30 years, and it used to be you could rent your property, you'd have a contract, you could evict people if they broke that contract. And when I inquired about this, I was told that had I confronted these people inside the house, I would have had to serve them an eviction notice, and it would have taken me 30 to 90 days to get them out. I never saw these people, I didn't know them, I never had them sign a rental contract. How can we get this law changed back? I mean, I realize it was probably changed because there was a lot of landlord dirty deeds done to renters. But, now it's like the squatters have the rights, the landlords have none.
I have not been proposing any changes. I'm very sensitive to this, interestingly enough, even though I've never rented a property out. I do think it's a growing problem, and I think that what you said is spot on, that there was a sense that landlords were unfair, and if they could get someone to come in and pay a little more, they could just evict a family with no notice, and then that family's unhoused, and now with Airbnb and all these rental properties, there's not enough rental, and properties on the market, there's a lot of tension. But I'm not so sure that New Mexico doesn't need an updated version, particularly in the fact pattern that you described, which is that there's no rental agreement, they just broke in. And so I worry about this, and I worry too that in too many communities, you might have gone in there. And they might not have been very friendly about that in squatting, and you could have been hurt, or worse. And so I'd like to follow up with you about that, and we could probably find a sponsor and get something drafted, and I'd like to look at that. But you're not incorrect that I find a bit of two camps on landlord-tenant rights in the legislature that's, too broad either side, right? Too far. If you got in and you got shelter, then no one can tell you to do anything about it. And the other side, which is you have no rights if you're a renter. And somewhere in the middle is some common sense here. And I haven't looked at that law in at least 24 months. So I will look at it. I'll get a couple of best practices. And again, if you're willing to share with us your name and information, we'll follow up with you, and let's see if we can't get that adjusted a bit. I'm seeing that be a huge problem around the state as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that story. I'm glad you weren't harmed.
Thank you, Sue. We have a couple down here in the middle. Oh, no, one on the left. Yes, sir. We'll get you guys.
Am I next?
Yes, sir.
My name's Scott Foreman, with Raton resident, as of about 3 years ago. I came here wishing to voice my opposition to a bill that you have proposed and have been pushing, I don't know for how long, for several months at least. And it does not involve crime or police, but it does involve public safety, definitely. I am opposed, and many people I know are opposed to the proposed Strategic Water Supply Act. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure a lot of other people here don't know, so I'll very quickly explain what it is. And this is a concern. This is not really a question. So I will read this off. It should be very quick. The Strategic Water Supply Act provides $75 million in public funds to incentivize the creation of a treatment and reuse industry for the oil and gas industry's liquid fracked waste. They call it produced water. It is being marketed as a solution to a projected 25% water shortage expected in New Mexico by 2050. The real motivation for this is for the proposal is that the oil and gas industry generated over 2 billion barrels of oil field wastewater in 2023, and they are running out of low-cost disposal options for this. The plan is a publicly funded bailout for a private industry that already reaps billions in profits. The bottom line is the Strategic Water Supply Act endangers our health, our clean water sources, and fails to provide a meaningful solution to the very real water scarcity problem that New Mexico faces. So basically, this is water that has very dangerous, radioactive, known toxic, cancer-producing chemicals in it. But apparently, you want it to be a whole new industry to be funded publicly with $75 million to to use this water to put on crops, to actually, I've heard it will eventually go into our water supply that we are drinking, okay? This is toxic water going into our water supply. And to the best of my knowledge, this is your proposed solution to the scarcity of water in New Mexico.
Not a solution to the scarcity of water, but you are correct on several pieces. One, it is our administration's idea. Two, oil and gas has to pay. Three, that water is because I don't let them use your fresh water anymore. But what they can do with it, and they get fined, but it doesn't stop them. Because to your point, it's not billions, it's trillions around the globe. They dump it at the border in Texas, and it is in your water supply. And I'm appalled. I want all the water. I want uranium out of the uranium polluted wells that no one is cleaning up. I want the jet fuel out of Albuquerque's aquifer. I don't want any chemicals by oil and gas, by ag. I don't want fire retardant, which absolutely causes cancer, which is being put into our drinking water systems knowingly by our bases. So I don't want any of it. The technology today, you can clean up any water. You are right that I'm not making a very good case we're not trying to use that water anywhere. I want it clean, so when they dump it at the Texas border, it's not going to kill us. Two, those industries are great industries for the rest of New Mexico's brackish water, which is expensive to treat. Brackish water, I wish I was wrong, I don't think I am. We're the first administration to do an actual water plan. We are going to have at least 25% less water. We're not trying to use oil and gas water. I'm not trying to use uranium water. I don't want jet fuel water. I don't want PFAS water. I actually don't want water with sulfur in it. I might still want water with fluoride in it, so I hope that works for this community. But I don't want it. And we're really too slow. New Mexico, in my expert opinion, based on the facts presented to me, I'm not a water engineer. I'm not a brackish water expert, sir. I want to be really clear about that. I'm listening to the evidence of my engineers. That 25% is a gift. It could be much worse in the next 50 years. We do not have enough fresh water to sustain both ag, which I think we should sustain, or our basic industries. I want fresh water from our aquifers to go to you, me, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. I want produced water not to be a pollutant, and I want brackish water for industry. And maybe someday farmers believe that it's clean enough that it can be used for certain crops. Definitely for cotton. I promise you it's fine for cotton. But I'm not mandating that any of that. No mandates. You can't use any of that water. You can treat it. You can show me that you can treat it. You got to pay for it. So that investment is for the companies to initiate the infrastructure for brackish, so that's salt water. Oil and gas pays to clean their produce water. So that's the part I haven't explained very well. Full transparency. I didn't separate it very effectively in the last legislative session, which may be why it seems so off balance for an oil and gas industry. That's my fault. But this year it's very clear. They pay, they must clean it up. I don't want it dumped. I need brackish water operations, desalination. We got to start. We have to start. And fresh water's for us to drink. And for our crops. Fresh, good water in our aquifers. And you might have seen me invest. How much have I invested? Rebecca's up there. You can't see her. She's spying on me. She does our water stuff and our infrastructure. Can you yell out, how much money are we into now for Clovis? Because they're the largest aquifer for southern New Mexico, is literally out of water. There's no water left. And we're doing a diversion.
20 to 30 million.
My I've done at least 30 once, and I've done more than that. To put it in perspective, we're going to do a diversion. It's not brackish water. We're bringing water from a different water source just to make sure that Clovis and Roswell have enough water today. The price tag for us is about $600 million. That's why I'm looking for cheaper, more efficient ways to clean up salt water and to use it for other industries. I may not have sold you, and there's a lot of folks that are concerned, and just to be a woman of my word, I'll make sure that you know who's carrying our stuff. You're right, I have an uphill battle. I would be interested if you think there are any safeguards that I could re-add that would be better, and if not, I want to make sure that you're armed with everything to do your part in the legislature. And I promise I'm a fair actor in that regard, and I'll make sure that you know exactly where we are and what we're doing. But it is my proposal. You're correct.
So that's very important, Governor. My name is Bill Allen, and I'm a lifelong resident of Colfax County. Now I have some property in Santa Fe and Angel Park and New Park and stuff like that. We have been in a drought for several years. It's been a real issue in the state of New Mexico. And God, our prayers go out to those people in Los Angeles and them out there. Devastating. But we've lived with this ourselves for a long, long time ourselves in New Mexico. And my issue is myself and other friends and other property owners in Santa Fe and around the state are losing their coverage on fire protection. And everybody in this building here tonight is at risk tomorrow with their insurance company canceling their fire coverage. And it really upsets me because we allow insurance companies to sell full coverage of different things: health, auto, life, commercial, personal property, personal liability, loss. And these are companies that get to, at the luxury of our state, to sell their products. Why in our state, why cannot we pressure insurance companies that are doing business in the state of New Mexico to give us citizens a full coverage of insurance, i.e. fire, and the reason is that we're having fires. Well, one of the largest fires started in the state of New Mexico was by the federal government.
That's right.
And our property sits right next to that, and they canceled our fire insurance. So is there something the state can do to help us? Because without fire protection, we're just like the people in Los Angeles and Pacific Palisades. So that's my question.
So the answer is yes and no. So I have some good news, I think. The no part is government's not allowed, including me, to tell the private sector where to sell, what to sell, when to have a business. So I can't make insurance companies do anything. And I can tell you that we're struggling for medical malpractice, fire and water. And I struck a deal, which was very nice. Republicans and Democrats were very happy that I strong-armed an insurance company and made it really clear that they were going to provide malpractice insurance. But what they did is they sold it. They jacked up the prices. Ask any doctor, and practice, they're furious. And I'm with the doctors. I'm furious too. So for fire, because they're spending so much now on all these fires, and I'm no fan of the insurance model, and there are plenty, in my views, it's just my opinion. I don't think insurance companies have done most Americans any favors. But it is true now that they are all going to be bankrupt. I mean, there's just no way. The premiums they would have to charge us are so high to recover for these threats and losses. You're just not going to do it. So that's the bad news. No, I cannot make them do right by you and cover you at a reasonable cost. So what could I do? For both fire and malpractice, we're entertaining ways to create a non-profit subsidized so that you pay a fair premium. but we front load a fund to protect New Mexicans. And it's kind of like the FAIR Plan, but it's better, and it's how we run in New Mexico workers' compensation. And workers' comp insurance companies didn't give New Mexicans a very good deal. Doctors wouldn't take workers' comp. And about 20 years ago, it came to a head in New Mexico, and they created their own insurance environment. And now it's one of the best run systems that's never been bankrupt in America. I think we can use this concept for fire and for malpractice. So we're going to be introducing legislation that does both, because no one in New Mexico, and God help you if you're a rancher, you cannot get fire coverage. And if they will sell it to you, it's priced so that there's no way you can afford it. And it's just going to get worse. So that's the best idea I could come up with. I think it's got some good support in the legislature. If there are other ideas that I haven't thought of, I want them, because I'm very worried about it. So we want something addressed in this session, and we're planning fire, flood, and malpractice. They're on my list of priorities. Right. And I'm happy to work with you and show it to you. I do think these concepts can really work.
Do we have an insurance committee?
We do. We have a superintendent with a board. They're running front point person on both these concepts. And the superintendent's name is Alice Kane. And I can also, if the mayor doesn't mind, and it'll be on my website, but we'll advertise where you can get copies of all of this stuff. Good news is we're working on it. Bad news is I don't think we have the actual bill draft. That's a whole other conversation. But we'll get you the concepts in writing so that you can see them. And I'd like your feedback. You're a property owner. You got to buy it. See if this makes sense to you. But we think it's the best strategy, particularly in the short term, to just interrupt the insurance industry and take care of New Mexicans' real liability here. It's not fair. So I'm honored. Yeah, Ruidoso was a wake-up call. We're going to do more. So I'm honored. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Angie Gonzalez. I'm a stay-at-home mom here in town, and I just want to say thank you guys for your service. I remember being in college and being student body president, and we had a board like yours. And I remember that I would get so excited about passionate people coming and saying, we're doing something, we're doing our part to help. Because I know that you guys have a passion to serve and care for, but you're just one person, and you really do need people. And so what I want to say is that I think on my heart tonight is that we're a community here. And this is a good community. You could take lessons from this community, because people pray for each other, help each other out. And I want to ask our community tonight to continue praying for these folks who have to govern, because they need wisdom from above. If you're a Christian, I want to ask you to pray for these folks who have so many decisions to make, so many personalities to work with, so many things to do, that they'll have wisdom from above. Because as Christians, we believe that we're to pray for the peace of our city. And so I want to encourage anybody who's part of that community here to make that commitment tonight. So let me encourage you to remember these folks in prayer, because they're going to need your prayer. And also I want to say that we get to serve here in this community, helping families. Our heart is for families, their spiritual needs. And we believe that God wants to restore families here in this community and branch out from there. So everything we can do to do that, I just want you to know that that's where our passion lies. That's what we spend our days doing. And we hope that that encourages some locally, but also maybe could be an example for other places too. I will say that life teaches us a lot, and we can learn what not to do from others. You guys have mentioned California. We don't want to do anything California does. They're a place to learn from what not to do.
You like some of their movie stuff. We're making some money on that.
Because what they've done over there, we haven't seen the fruit of that be good for communities. And so the things that are going on here in Raton, you have people coming together, you have people going to church together, going to school together, working together, looking out for one another. Those principles of people, those are the things that make a difference in community. A last comment, and I want you guys to please think about this, is the inmates who are behind bars. I've been reading that it's hard for them to afford to stay connected to their families. They have to pay for this, they have to pay for that. They have to pay exorbitant prices for access to communication outside. And so I want you guys to please, can you guys please make it affordable, make it nearly free, because email is free, for them to stay connected to at least their family members. Perhaps a clergyman or a clergy person. Somebody that they can stay connected to, because when they get out, if they have zero connection after years in there, that's not good for anybody. And so I want to ask you guys, can you please work on that for the inmates? Thank you so much for everything that you do and for being here tonight.
I want to just thank you for your thoughtfulness. That was very kind, and you guys are so quiet. Talk about being in the hot seat. There isn't anybody up here that doesn't appreciate that powerful, positive statement, including me, and thank you very much. Two, thank you for being a strong community leader and doing your part in college and your part for your family. And last, I have my Secretary of Corrections here. There's a whole body of stuff that we do really well in corrections, and there's still some stuff that needs our attention. And she's down here in the front row, and I'm going to ask her if that's okay. You want to stand up so she can see who you are? And then she'll come up there and talk to you about how they do that pricing and things that she would like to get done and get some more of your ideas. I don't think we're doing enough, particularly on the parole side. That's not always her job in the way that I'm describing. So we see some gaps too. I hope it's useful when you talk to me, when I tell you, nope, that's my idea, and this is why, so that you clearly know when we're not going to be on the same page, but invite you to keep doing what you should do and have every right to do. And then tell you when we are on the same page, but tell you I might not be getting it as done as effectively as we'd like to, so that you know where we are. I will always tell you the truth, even if it's me that's doing it, because you deserve the truth every single time. So the secretary will pop over there and make sure that we have a conversation. And I think there's more we could do in a lot of those spaces. There's some stuff we have to be careful about, interestingly enough, actually creates more tension than it should, but we can do a better job here, I think. And I'm going to brag about her. She's getting accolades all across the country. You have the highest, GED certificates now in the country per corrections population. We are really rethinking how we do probation and parole. I'm not satisfied. She's not either. We need more corrections officers. I'm sorry for your tragedy, Secretary, today. We had a tragedy. Really hard job. So it's nice that we've got family members and community members that worry about that side of the equation. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, one quick announcement before we move to the next question. For folks utilizing the child care that we have available, that child care will be closing at 7:30 p.m. So what we'd like to do is make sure we prioritize the folks with questions or comments who are utilizing the child care so that they'll be able to pick up their kiddos. So if we could have people give them the opportunity to go. Do you have any folks with child care needs that have a question? Okay, very good. Moving on to the next hand, I saw one. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I don't know how people are going to run out of these seats, but just in case you're a runner.
My name is Lupita Encinas. I am a proud New Mexican, all of my life, born, raised, educated. I didn't get to work too long in the state, but that's not neither here nor there. I'm back now. She's back. No, but my question went along with what Bill Allen mentioned earlier, the cost of the insurance rates, and even if we're not within the area of the fire damage, we still pay those high costs, and that is what I put on the ledger. But I think you answered that, eloquently, and I think your approach that you mentioned about trying to do something like what was done regarding the malpractice suit, and having like a state-run insurance program that really understands the issues within the state and what we really do go through is something that I really think and encourage that continues. And I am really concerned about potential fires in our area because we are surrounded by these beautiful mountains and these, gifts that nature has given us, with our beautiful forest. That like Sugar Reed had a fire out here, and we were talking about that in 2010, and we could feel the ashes and the smoke, and it's devastating. And I really have a lot of heartfelt for the families in California that are experiencing this tragedy. Because again, it's water issues. And then that's the second issue that was brought up that is of concern to us as well, because again, we are a drought state. Where else haven't you answered that? The other issue I did have was the concern about the gun violence that we're seeing, and hopefully to try to gain some control or make reasonable, sensible laws regarding gun ownership. And I came in here earlier, and we were talking about that case in one of the southern counties where they did not do anything about a gentleman had 2 open guns in his living room, taking care of his partner. I'm not sure if they were his partner or he was just a caretaker, and he killed her. And that was her concern. Please take this man away from my home. He's going to shoot me. And the state police officer, the sheriff, I'm not sure, city police, walked away and said, yeah, I'm glad you have guns. I like guns too. He had guns. They were open. They were loaded. And nothing happened. Now we have the same issue, a lot of that, with the gun violence among, like you mentioned, our youth, who are getting access to guns. And I know that's a big money market. They traffic that down into Mexico, and that's why we see all this crap going on down there and people fleeing from countries, because there is this proliferation of guns. And also in Albuquerque, I mean, my goodness, and youth getting access to guns, it has to do with being smart and finding out how they're getting these guns and creating those guns and the 3D printing of guns. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there, and I don't know if that committee up there has any say into the matter, but I really would like to see a support for more gun safety, because that is protecting the lives of our community. And I sometimes get scared because I do live in an area that there's a lot of traffic, and like even for the New Year's Eve, I wasn't sure if there was gunshots flying around or if they were the type of fireworks that could have caused a fire going off that were illegal. I mean, it's crazy. I live in it's a small town, and we don't seem to have a lot of that, but I still have those concerns.
I think most folks here know, and again, I'm not trying to persuade, defend, and if I sound defensive, including the gentleman about strategic water supply, and I really appreciated your explanation, because I didn't do a very good job last year separating the two issues, and you highlighted that very effectively, and I'm grateful, and accurately. I worry about gun violence. I'm the one that people call when an 11-year-old is shot and killed. I'm the one that gets called when a school is locked down. I'm the one whose parents call, want to know what we're going to do. And so I have been pretty aggressive about curbing gun violence and having common sense constitutional gun laws. Responsible gun owners are not a problem in America, and they are certainly not a problem in New Mexico. All the data shows that concealed carry does not make you less safe, so we're a concealed carry state. Try to follow the evidence. We have a lot of effective, I think, gun violence reduction laws on the books. I wish I could disagree with you and say that they are widely utilized. They aren't. And there was actually a national news report that New Mexico has adopted the vast majority of evidence-based gun violence reduction measures like extreme risk protection order, often referred to as the red flag law. Most people don't like that terminology, but that's what we know it to be. But it doesn't get utilized very much in any jurisdiction. So red, blue, no way to decide what the political majority is in a community. They don't get used very much. And it was a really striking report that we're doing the work that a rational state, a rational, reasonable, following evidence would try, but we don't utilize them. We, I think, are likely to be entertaining. I think the legislature will have some more gun violence protection measures. I'm interested. I'm happy to share those with you. I will say that like some of the other bills I've discussed, like the public safety package, so I'm gonna make it like it is in the legislature. 50% of the legislature will really like these gun violence bills, 50% will not. They're very close margins. There's a lot of debate. They're not easy to pass. They probably shouldn't be, right? You've got to be really clear about the constitutionality of these proposals. Second Amendment, very clear. And the U.S. Supreme Court, who has set some parameters, they're narrow. So you got to be, I mean, it's a big debate, but more, I think, are coming. I think that more will likely pass, but it's a thin margin. And the reason I tell you that, if the right side of the room from my side, so your left side, wants more gun violence measures, more coming to be debated. If this side says they don't make any difference, don't want them, I think it's infringement, more debate is coming, and you have every right to participate meaningfully. So that's the best I can do. I think that you're likely to see a description for ghost guns and making that clearly illegal. So 3D printing and plastic guns that we can't detect in a metal detector, no go. I think you'll see some legislation related to that. I think you'll see some broader definitions about liability for families because the current bill, it's called the Benny Hargrove bill, doesn't seem to be strong enough. We have one case, parents negligently or potentially knowingly gave an illegal firearm to a juvenile, took it to school, shot someone, killed them. That case was tried, got dismissed. It couldn't be tried in the way that people thought it could. So I think there might be some, I think the police actually want that, some clarification as a general rule. I can't say the Sheriff's Association endorsed it. I can't say all the police folks have endorsed it, but I think they're interested is at least what I am sensing. I think there's going to be a bill introduced to talk about the firing mechanism in assault weapons. So it's really tricky because hunters use rifles that we don't want to ban. And so now there's a way to describe the firing mechanism. I think that bill gets introduced. I don't know whether it will pass. It's been introduced in one form or another 4 times? At least 4 times. So I expect that to get reintroduced. We might, and this would be a bill that could likely come from my office. We think the extreme risk protection order is too narrow. So it doesn't get used in enough domestic violence and related situations or situations where somebody clearly has a serious mental health issue and should not have access to a firearm. So we're likely to refine that a bit. And those are I think the big ones that are likely to be in this session. Am I missing any that any of you have heard of?
No, I think you hit the really important ones.
Right, Chief might have one. Do you have one that I missed? I don't want you to think I'm not answering.
No, I think you covered the majority, Governor, and I think the one specifically that I know is going to be introduced, I believe by, and maybe District Attorney Montoya to speak further, but I think out of the DA is going to be back in about clock switches, which is, a 3D printed device you can put inside of a semi-automatic weapon to turn it into an automatic firearm. There's a federal statute that outlaws that. The issue, though, is that there's not a state statute. So if the feds don't prosecute it, even though it's illegal, there's no way to prosecute it on the state side. So we're going to close that loophole, I believe, in this session.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you for that question. I hope that was informative, and I hope I am making it balanced. Okay. Someone down here too, just so we don't lose.
Hi, my name is Jerry Hildreth. Currently the Angel Fire Police Chief. I've served law enforcement for about 37 years. And all here in New Mexico, northern New Mexico. Governor, first I want to thank you for what you tried to do last year in the special session. Things that we're talking about that I've heard discussed here tonight, you tried to bring back to a special session, and I commend you for that. And I support you for doing that. It's perfect that I'm going next, because what I wanted to bring up was the extreme risk protection or red flag laws, whatever we choose to call them. They are too narrow. And I hope in the bill that gets introduced, and I hope that it will get traction, we'll have amendments there so a police officer can file those. Because right now I can't. And when I was the sheriff for 2 terms in Taos County, I tried on 3 different cases. And I was not able to do that. And it was very frustrating and disappointing. But I accept that because it is our laws. The other thing in the firearm protection law that I'd like to see changed is the immediate seizure of those guns. If we have probable cause that we can present to a judge, why wait 48 hours? That makes absolutely no sense to me and many people that are like-minded with me. It needs to be immediate, that law enforcement seizes those guns, or they self-surrender them to a licensed federal firearms licensee. And lastly, for a violation of that, should be a do not pass go, and that person should be immediately incarcerated and held until the matter is adjudicated through the court. I feel very strongly about it. Perhaps I was one of your road sheriffs back in maybe half.
I think you still are. I'm teasing you. We go a long way back, so I apologize to the public for being so unprofessional. You do not, sir. You've been wonderful.
The things that we're talking about now are exactly what I wish could have been put in that from the beginning. We had to compromise. It's time to come back and do it again. I know you support it. I see Mr. Baker shaking his head doing this up and down, so I know he supports it. And I want you to know you'll have my support.
Terrific. I think we're in good shape on all 3 of those. 2 for sure, the first 2. I'm going to need your support. And again, I think there may be some interesting assumptions. Like for me, I think everyone knows, I'm a Democrat, and I was campaigning for Democrats. I think the sense is Democrats really want these bills. I can't convince a whole lot of Democrats because they're constitutional scholars. And so they get very nervous about some of the constitutionality and some of the provisions. Really, they should. That gives me hope. And the same thing, we've got Republicans who really want these bills because they know the impact it's having on public safety in their communities. But I think if we just sort of put it out there, there'd be a general sense that one side versus another. I do think for the Democrats that have been really nervous, we're much closer to getting them to put these in. And for the Republicans that didn't want to do any of it, I think we've really made the case. So thank you, because that happens when law enforcement provides factual information. So thank you, I'm looking at them, and DAs, about what you can prosecute, what you can't, what's going on. And in my last town hall, a gentleman tried to voluntarily give his firearm under one of these circumstances, and the police wouldn't take it. And so we don't have any place to store that, and that turned out to be false. We have plenty of places to store it. If you don't, let me know, we'll make sure we buy that. But it is time, I think, that we make it uniform and available. And again, these extreme risk protection orders are only in extreme cases. That's why it's got that title. When there's no other way to make a person in that household safe or the community safe is temporarily having that gun in custody while a due process environment takes place. It is not permanent. So thank you for that. We will need your help and support, and you should expect that those are already being drafted.
Well, that's really good to hear, and I guess you all can hear me now, so that's okay. Yeah, and I greatly appreciated that, and again, I just want to reiterate, anything that would give the police officers, to take the cuffs off the cops, and let us be able to identify the person with the mental health issues or the anger issues, because I think probably everyone in this room should agree, some people simply shouldn't have guns. And anything for the protection of our children, they're our future, and anything for the protection of our elders, they're the ones that give us the wisdom that we live by every day. So thank you for the initiative on that. I stand in your corner on this one.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, my name is Monty Gore. I'm the Colfax County Manager. I wanted to thank you for coming tonight. This has been great, and these are complex, multifaceted issues, and you're getting a lot of them tonight. But thank you for coming, and thank you for bringing your team. I think one of the things for public safety that I would really like to see, and I think you kind of talked about it at the beginning of your discussion tonight, is I'm also a retired undersheriff. In order to enforce the laws, we have to have laws that make sense. And in one particular case, I actually worked with the sheriff here. We had a bad guy that we needed to charge with a felony, hold accountable. And I think the law prohibited us from doing that because he committed the crime with a knife versus a firearm. And things like that are just plain silly. And I think if we can create a foundation, work with our legislators, work with our lawmakers to actually come up with laws that give law enforcement the authority to make an arrest. When citizens call the police, what they want is somebody to come and resolve the situation. And if the law enforcement officer gets there, and for whatever reason there's not enough probable cause, or there's not enough of a law that has been broken that they can take action, then nothing gets done. So I think probably going back to the basics on a lot of this stuff, and actually working with the legislature and lawmakers to come up with common sense laws that give law enforcement the opportunity to make an arrest and get these people off the street. One of the other things, Angie, I agree with you on some of the jails and stuff. We just got our jail accredited, so we're continuing to be proactive here in Colfax County and move forward. One of the things that there's been some discussion about is, even with the court system, and this is a question I have for you, is there any effort right now on the part of the state to work with the courts to do like ankle monitoring or some kind of a system like that statewide? Because I know right here the county does it, but a lot of times that is an incredible expense for the county. Once again, that's money that we could actually divert to the sheriff's office or something like that if we didn't have to work to pay a contractor for the ankle monitoring. I've heard that there's going to be some kind of an initiative or something like that taking place. Can you comment on that, please?
Finally, a question I can't comment on. I haven't heard of a sort of statewide effort. That gets viewed not as a state law, but rather right, wrong, or indifferent, more of an investment strategy that courts and jurisdictions can use. There's been a lot of controversy. I think it's died down to some degree in Bernalillo County, and I'm not trying to pick on them, depending upon who the contractor is, what kind of database they're using. People were cutting them off. They were using it for the wrong kind of potential defendants. There were a lot of misgivings about whether that was actually creating the kind of public safety tool. I think any legitimate tools that aren't illegal to use, and that is legal, if you have the infrastructure in this community and a contractor to support you. Not that you have to do it yourselves, we're not gonna opine about that. And that was in a legislative request. You wouldn't get from me an opinion that says, gosh, I really don't like those. You know, I want them to do X instead. So we would entertain it. But there's been some controversy around the state about the efficacy, or whether there's too much reliant on that information, and you shouldn't, and you have a problem that results. But again, I think this community should give us a robust request for public safety investments, and I'm not doing this to say that we've done enough, that's it. But it's at least $1.5 billion, maybe more, since 2019 for everything. Training, judicial complexes, the law enforcement academy, raises, retention, cars, helicopters, shot detectors, crime labs, fusion centers, the like. And we think these are important and valuable tools, and you have me at hello. I think we waited too long as a state to really properly use enough of our resources for both things. This is a fight, I think, by policymakers. One camp wants just investments to prevent. Well, you need those still. I need families to be healthier. I need them to be safer. I need there to be more economic security. We want lots of jobs, all those things. And then one camp wants just accountability. I don't think you should be doing that, particularly in a state that's got ample opportunity to achieve both. We can keep investing in the wellness of our communities and hold people accountable. Parallel track, and I'm going to brag about a couple things that most people don't know and quite frankly don't believe still. So we got to do a better job talking about it. New Mexico went from 50th in childhood poverty in the last 2 years to 17th. Yes, it is exactly where we need to be headed. We are the only state entertaining universal free childcare. We're the only state in America where that's a constitutional right, and we expect to get the rest of the money to stand up every provider. And those early childhood workers, pre-K and childcare, are finally getting paid living, not wages, real salaries to do this work. Moonshot into education, free college. Hundreds of millions going into affordable housing. Until every family doesn't feel like they have to make a choice between fruit or produce and meat at a grocery store, we're not done. Until every family isn't worried about their fire insurance, their mortgage, their car insurance, their gas, we aren't done. Those are real issues here. There are far too many families that are not confident they have enough money at the end of the month for economic security. That's not right. Got a lot of work to do there. We have the best economy we've had, not in 20 years, in 30 years. We have the lowest unemployment in more than 20 years. We've reduced taxes by a lot in every category, every single year, because we are doing really good work together. Is it hitting Raton in all the places that you want? I'm sure it's not. Is every community member here feeling like they're financially secure and not worried for tomorrow? No. I guarantee you not. I want to keep fighting till every New Mexican says, I never felt so secure and supported with opportunities wherever in my life. That's where we need to keep headed. It's both. But I've had legislators pick one camp or the other. My opinion is you do both. I want both. Lower taxes, more money for New Mexico families, more investments in our well-being, better supports for small business, more in our roads and infrastructure, lower prices for the things that everybody needs. Your gas bill, your electric bill, your gasoline, your bread, your milk. Let's keep fighting for that. You have me at hello. But I want accountability on the public safety side too. I hope that didn't tell you. I'm not running for re-election. Everyone's happy about that, particularly my husband. Everyone, so that's who we should all be. And want New Mexicans to feel better about what their future looks like.
And Governor, if I may,
Yeah.
to that point regarding monitoring and supervision, the 8th Judicial District Court will begin launching, hopefully in June or July, pretrial services. And that's kind of a wraparound, so they will be responsible for GPS tracking, exclusion zones, violations, and they will report to the district attorney's office, the defense attorney, and to the court these violations, so that way it's not a burden of the county. And we have more comprehensive 24/7 supervision of those that are out on certain conditions of release, so we can monitor whether or not they're complying with those conditions of release. If they're not, we'll have a more speedy response and maybe be able to, ask the judge to revisit conditions of release, so that way it does contribute to a much more comprehensive component of public safety until the case is adjudicated.
And not every community did that, so congratulations, thank you for that update, and thank you for doing it.
Yes, my name's Dean Torres, and I'm here to talk about the drugs here in Colfax County. It's not just here, Springer, Maxwell, Edgar Fire, Eagles Nest. These last 15, 20 years, it's getting worse and worse. I mean, walk around, these people walking around just like zombies. I'm a victim, I got friends that are victims that got their stuff stolen out of their trucks, their homes. It's getting ridiculous. I think these officers are trying to do the best out here. I asked you, why don't you get a task force, a drug task force, come into these small communities and prevent this from happening?
Thank you. I'm happy to do a task force. Interestingly enough, we have a bunch tied to drug addiction and the sales of drugs. I want stiffer penalties for drug dealers. I'm actually going to dial back some of the cannabis, not that cannabis in and of itself is leading to fentanyl and meth, but it isn't helping. And so expect that. If you think a task force here could really look at some of these issues, I'm in. I'm very worried, and this is part of it. The very bad felons and drug dealers are never held accountable. Okay, that was a bit of barely an exaggeration. They're not held accountable. So they are in plain sight drug dealing on every corner, by our schools, in our mid-schools, in our grade schools. Drug addiction is up, drug overdose fatalities are down. I'm worried that some New Mexicans see the drug addiction reduction, the drug overdose, the fatalities from drug overdoses down, and assume that drug addiction and narcotic sales are down. They are not. And it's why we were doing fentanyl testing in the water systems and in the schools. I was trying to map out patterns in communities, a number of things. I'm very frustrated. Sounds to me like you are too. I'm really worried. This epidemic has to end. And I'm happy to do whatever you think could make a difference, and I would lean on the experts in this community. We do have the state police are involved in a very high level. That doesn't sound right. What I mean by that is the feds are involved. I don't get to direct them. They do evidence-based police work. They do investigations. We've had some incredible busts. We've had some of the highest fentanyl busts in America. That's nothing to be proud of, except that we're at least getting the bad guys. They're not held long enough, and they don't go to prison for long enough, and so I'm worried about it. I'll do anything in this community you think would turn the tide, but I need stronger tools. These drug peddlers should be in jail and locked up for a damn long time. A damn long time, and I want public intervention. And that one squarely rejected by the legislature. So I'm on it. I'm not winning it, but I won't stop trying. I feel better this session, but I could use you. But I'll do a task force. I'll fund it. I'll do whatever you need. And my state police and your local police are really equipped to do incredible operations and prevention both, and I'll bring it. Yes, sir, I'll do it. No, please.
Sir, if I could just expand on that, State Police Crime Suppression Bureau works challenges across the entire state, not just drugs, whatever the challenge is for that particular community. And so we've heard your concern, just leaned over to the chief and confirmed that we can send crime suppression to do some operations. We do an assessment typically of the area. It's not a uniform, it's a plain clothes type of a thing. So if you wouldn't see it in your community, that would be why, if they're doing their job well. And so we have a crime suppression bureau that we send over, like I said, through specific communities across New Mexico, hearing people's concerns, and so we'll do the same thing here and try to see if we can make an impact. And then wherever the investigation goes from there, we can, of course, solicit additional partners. We have great relationships, of course, with the Sheriff's Department. I see, of course, the chief in the back as well. And so we'll make sure that we collaborate with them as well, to make sure that we have an impact in the community. Chief,
And their operations work. What I can't do is have the state police, the whole team here all the time. I wish I could. We have to move around the whole state, and we are thousands of police officers shy still in the state. We're all working on it. There's no jurisdiction that's not doing their part to heavy lift, and we're marketing all across the country. This is, in fact, I think right now, if not the best state, in the top 3 best states for recruiting, payment, salary, benefits, supports, training in the country. And we should be #1. And I'm dedicated to doing that. And I just got reminded that for a serious trafficker, not the user, users got to be accountable too, but these predators, the drug traffickers, life in prison. I'm not fooling around. So I want you to know I agree with you. I've had enough.
This bill is literally written for what you were talking about. This is something the governor has put forward before and will do so again this year. Fentanyl trafficking, which results in human death. Criminal penalty enhancement when a person is convicted for trafficking fentanyl in your community, which results in the death of another person, is guilty of a capital felony, which could result in them being in prison for the rest of their life. Again, treatment of the predicate offender, the people who are preying upon our folks and preying upon their addiction. So we could really use your support, your testimony about what's happening in your community related to fentanyl addiction, but how it's getting here is the place where we'd like to apply the state police and other law enforcement partners to the solution. So thank you very much, and we agree with you.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Lower Molina, the new Director of Community and Economic Development here in Raton, and I've had the fortune of living in about half a dozen different states, including California, many of which have great solutions. My question is about immediate action and long-term vision in relation to the application of technology to public safety. And there are 3 areas I'm interested in. The first is GIS. If we can't find locations for firefighting and police force activities, it's very hard to protect the public, so I'm interested in their vision and immediate actions for GIS. Also cell phone and Wi-Fi connections, and finally data sets for services like findhelp.org, 211 services, and basically public service directories. Where are we with that, and where are we going?
We have invested on all 3 of those fronts. It's not as robust, and not everybody participates in a unified way, which is probably part of your frustration. Broadband and getting adequate cell service, particularly for first responders and emergencies, is a significant challenge in the state. No state got enough broadband money, and we're lucky that a little bit more sort of seeped out of the federal government, but it is not an area that we're doing enough in. And Rebecca, I don't know what we've got in the queue for more investing. We want to own more of the mobile units that provide for rural areas and areas like this, so that you've got more control over constant communication. So these mobile units that we bring in for emergencies, I can't get them sometimes. So we want to own our own, so that's in the queue. If you've got specific things that we could invest in here, we're interested. And I didn't say it before, but as you're talking to me earlier, we cheated a bit. They bossed me around a lot before I came into this meeting about economic development and visions for the community. It was very helpful. Thank you to everyone. You know, we could do a lot better in this state on fire mitigation and training. I cannot do a fire training center in every community. They need to be more regionalized. We've got one already sort of anticipated for fire in what I'm going to call the Rio Arriba Taos corridor. This is a perfect area as a business to create state-of-the-art, across the country, in-person training sessions, fire mitigation work, clearing and thinning evidence-based forests, getting New Mexicans back to work, particularly in the area we're so close to Hermit's Peak, Calf Canyon. That might be another significant area to develop here, which could be 1,000 jobs. And I'd love to get your advice and tie all the technology tools to those endeavors. There is a very good set of investments at our universities for GIS mapping for a number of things. Not just risk and public safety and responding, but also water, which we should have been doing all along, and the state didn't. And I want that in the strategic. Again, it sounds like I'm just trying to get you all to love my strategic water idea, but whatever we end up with, we need to do more in water mapping. We need to know what we have and what we don't have, because it's pretty thin. But we like these ideas. I like these ideas because they're evidence-based. And you're right, other states have put them to use far earlier than we have, and it works. And the mistakes they've made, we don't need to replicate. So I'd love to talk to you more about that. And like the task force, you have my commitment to come right back in here and figure it out.
Governor, if I may.
Yeah?
I believe our Fire Chief Burke has already initiated a pretty stable training program, and several of the communities in this area have come to our community.
Well, he's never invited me.
We will put you on the list, but if that's something that we can expand on, you would definitely be welcome.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And there's a gentleman, and I know they can see other folks, so I'm not really allowed to interfere, but I know there's a gentleman here and somebody over there, if you guys can't see. One here first, okay. Just want to make sure we don't miss, this gentleman has been very patient. Everyone's been very patient. Thank you.
This is Cy Trio again, Chairman of the Colfax County Commission. Just for the crowd to know, you're asking them to reach out to our legislators. So Senator Campos, just for the crowd, is our senator, Representative Chatfield, and Representative Sanchez. So if any of you guys need their information, most of you all know me, I'd be more than happy to provide it.
And that's a good, powerful three, honestly,
Yeah.
that I think can have a bipartisan response. So thank you for alerting and reminding folks who their representatives are.
Of course. I do want to state that roads is hugely important, and a big thank you if you do me a favor, and please just text Secretary Cerna. He's been a huge help to Colfax.
I'm going to tell him you complained about him again.
Do it. No, he's just been a wonderful help, so just let him know that he's doing a great job. But roads, you know, for fire, everything else, police rewrite on that all the time. They need, some of the off-roads, the state highways need a little bit of work, but I know that's coming down the road. I also did want to state, though, on the insurance front, I'm an insurance agent to talk about canceling their insurance. My home got canceled just recently, but I was able to find coverage elsewhere. But on the FAIR plan, I've been trying to work with Senator Campos to raise those limits. It's not worth it for a lot of these homes in especially the Moreno Valley to go on the FAIR plan. It won't even cover, you know, maybe getting.
It's not worth the premiums that you're paying.
It's not worth it, and it's not worth it from the agent standpoint to even bother with it.
To sell it.
So, but if you have a friend there with Senator Campos, we're pushing him on our end for the FAIR plan to be increased and backed. So.
And I use the FAIR plan as an example because we know that there are efforts at the federal level, but we'd like something far greater than that. So fire, flood, malpractice, we're going to have a bunch of insurance proposals because we need to do something different. And thank you for your expertise on that matter.
Thank you.
name is Jose Lopez. I'm Ratonian for about 2.5 years now. I moved here with my wife Van Tice to open up our Raton Media Works. And I have two questions. As far as like cities and areas with high crime, do you currently use camera systems with AI to help track and at least focus all the resources where it needs to be? And secondly, for fire protection or at least mitigating and try to get a head start on a fire before it becomes a big problem, have you considered putting infrared cameras along the highways and major populated areas where that can be monitored so that we can send out, whether it's a drone to investigate this area and see if, deploy a fire team to start getting rid of the fire?
Yes to both. We have cameras. We have a lot of cameras in the state now. For folks who don't like cameras, that's always, gives people kind of a chilling effect. But we do. I will pick on law enforcement for making a point. So I'm asking, if you look at me, I'm looking around, I'm looking for forgiveness before I say it. Because they don't have to do these jobs. They're often thankless, not by this community, and they're really hard and high risk. And I'm grateful to every man and woman and family who says that they are willing to make those sacrifices to keep everybody else safe. So I'm a big fan. It's using the data across jurisdictions is not as robust and not as cooperative as it really needs to be in the state. And part of it is, one jurisdiction can ruin investigation for another jurisdiction. Not on purpose, but it can happen. So, and you're public, or you're responsible to them. And so I'll pick on the city. I'll just make the state police. Bowie, it's your fault, you and the chief, yet again. So they come in for a joint operation, they're using cameras and they make a mistake. They don't provide due process, or they don't Mirandize, or the camera wasn't on during the time they thought it was. They now jeopardize holding people accountable for something they needed to hold accountable. So there's a lot of risk to working together. There's far more risk to not working together. So I like cameras. I can tell you right now that I'm lighting up. The state is doing it, not the city. The city's not fighting me, but I think you might be surprised that the state ends up doing, frankly, a lot more than it ever has. And I have mixed reactions to that. But we got to catch up. So I'm lighting up downtown Albuquerque. We put a ton of cameras where there's risk, including downtown Albuquerque. And more are coming. I just put cameras on all the state properties where I see risk escalating in Santa Fe. I send the state police for how many number of operations over weekends and nights, and we will make where there is no arrests. They'll make 30 arrests in 2 days. Local jurisdictions, this jurisdiction, notwithstanding. Albuquerque, Santa Fe, officers don't patrol. DAs in some communities will not prosecute misdemeanors. Got a problem then. Got a felony. I mean, we have to prosecute for folks who are repeat offenders. It's a problem. So cameras, AI, technology, love it. Infrared's been really interesting. We use it, as you probably are aware, you might not have asked the question, after a fire. We use a little bit for surveillance. There's a lot of debate about the safety of drones in that technology. I'm also agnostic. I just want the tools that work other places, that should work here, that mitigate our risk. And no one wants fire and flood. And honestly, we're lucky that we haven't had major fires in more urban areas. We are so dry. And we have these. We may not have a Santa Ana wind, but make no mistake, you are here. Those winds in Hermit's Peak and California were 70 to 90 miles an hour. And I had to tell the Mexicans that it wasn't days, that we were going to be on fire. It was going to be weeks and weeks. I pray to God that's not what's going to happen in LA, but I don't know. We are interested, if you have expertise in early detection, in better tools, we want to know about it. And I'm going to make now Rebecca Roos raise her hand. I'm going to call all of that infrastructure. We have the resources to invest boldly in this state. And we should. Because we need to. And you know what? We're a rich state in a number of ways. We have the largest public endowments, the third largest in the world for education. You have a ton of money as New Mexicans squirreled away and safeguarded so that if things go south anywhere, anytime, New Mexico's in the best possible position. We were able to do rebates. I'd like to do more. I don't have a lot of support for that. But I would do it. This money belongs to you. We are really in good financial shape. We may be the only state that's going to get the national financial folks to say not just stable, but one of the only states, if not the only one, that is in a positive trajectory for having resources for a decade. And we did that together, and we don't talk about it enough. And again, I don't think that is translated to every New Mexican by any stretch of the imagination. But it's the right stuff in the right reason. So let's invest in more of this technology. It makes no sense that we don't. We have it. And let's do more for New Mexico families, because we have that too. Thank you for your knowledge here. Oh, Chief's got something.
Just to follow up on that, so just so everyone knows, so we've been building an intelligence-led policing program on a statewide basis at DPS. To get those disparate information that all those agencies have, all those different tools, whether it's cameras, whether it's license plate readers. There's been a big investment by the state in license plate readers over the last couple of years, and we've seen a really big impact on that. I mean, some of y'all might have seen we had a couple of really great success stories a couple of months ago. Within a week, we had several different incidents, including 5 kidnapped kids out of Texas that we recovered because of a license plate reader on I-10 in the Lordsburg area. So what we are doing though right now is we've been building out the digital infrastructure for that, and so now we're getting to the point where we're trying to connect the different agency systems so that everybody can have access to everyone else's stuff, so that we're not siloed, so that we know everyone's dealing with the same individuals. I deal with this, our state police deal with the same offenders that APD deals with, that Las Cruces deals with. And so this is the year that we are finally getting to the operational rollout phase of that plan, so we're really excited about that. And we are going to be expanding that. We're asking for additional funding this upcoming year because we want to roll it out to additional agencies. I would encourage the Sheriff's Office and Raton PD here to get with this, because right now, at least for the next couple of years, we do have funding to support that integration so that we can get everybody on the same page, and we can hopefully be a force multiplier and be more efficient in our responses, and able to use all those technological tools that that are becoming available to us.
And I'm going to have the general raise his hand who runs Homeland Security and the Guard, and they're using any number of really incredible high-tech tools. So the answer is always yes. And we make our grants really easy, which is not like government in general. We just, one page, tell us what you need. I'm exaggerating just a poquito, but not much. We don't need you having to write 30-page treatises about why something is valid here. This money belongs to every community and every New Mexican, and we're really trying to get it out. So apply, tell us what you need, we'll get it to you. Okay, this poor guy I'm worried. Yeah. No, he's behind you in the cowboy hat. Okay, all right. I think Rebecca's mad at you, sir, in that cowboy hat back there. I don't know what you did.
Thank you very much. First of all, on behalf of the mayor of Angel Fire, he had to go, he had a previous engagement, but he did want me to thank you and Secretary Serna for the recent commercial air flight grant that you have into Angel Fire.
That's going to be huge for Colfax County in many ways, not just Angel Fire. We really thank you for your support in that. A couple of other things. One is on the fire front. You're right. I think it's not a matter of if we're going to have a major fire in an urban center. It's a matter of when. And even though some of those urban centers like Angel Fire may be considered in a wildland area, believe me, if we had the fire that Guadalupita had in the Calf Canyon fire, which I happened to be in the middle of during that fire, it made quite an impression on me. If we had that in the village of Angel Fire would look much like Pacific Palisades right now. And so one of the things that we'd like you to look at, we know you do have a lot of infrastructure and your agencies have helped us quite a bit here in Angel Fire in many ways, but we do have a lot of older, undersized water lines that cannot support adequate water flow for a major fire. I mean, they may, put out a fire that we have at somebody's residence, but if we had the forest inflamed as we did in Calf Canyon in the village of Angel Fire, it's just the older lines would not support that. And so we'd like to work with you and your agencies to try and finance the rebuild. We have 47 miles of undersized water lines in the village of Angel Fire that need to be replaced with estimates of $100 million to replace those lines. So we don't expect you to write us a
You're
check.
going to have to charge more at the ski basin. Don't do it, I'm a skier, I can't afford it. Rebecca Roos is in charge of figuring that out, and I really appreciate that you're here. Tell the mayor thank you for coming, and I think it's also important for the public to know, we need them. These projects are incredibly expensive. Again, I don't have $3 billion to throw at it all at once, all around the state. We don't have enough people to even get that work done. But we can do bigger and better, and we've done a really good job. We really have as a state. But it's not enough. And I'd like to have more folks do just what you're doing. We need to get this started. We're going to need some major investments, and we'll leverage every pot of money we can and do everything we can to get you a significant head start.
I appreciate that very much. One other thing I'd like to bring up is, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on the salary increases that you brought to our state police over the last few years. I do believe, and a strong believer, that all of our first responders in the state of New Mexico basically are underpaid. But there are unintended consequences of positive actions, and one of those is the fact that rural New Mexico has struggled not only with finding police officers, but now because of the rates that the staters are making is so high, being able to pay properly to recruit police officers. And I know that you have grants out there that are to help us hire and those things. We appreciate that. But the reality is those grants fade out after 3 years, and the salaries you're offering the state troopers don't. They're sustainable. We need some different type of help, long-term help. Like I said, I don't want to take away from your raises. They were a great thing for the state.
Because worse, I'm about to hopefully do another huge raise. Because you're right, we don't pay our public health folks enough, including in the private sector. We don't pay our educators. We were great. We were #1 in the Southwest after our first investment. I need some outcomes out of public education, but you don't penalize the men and women who are dedicating their lives and they can't make their own mortgage payment. So I'd like to see us do a little more. Law enforcement, firefighters got to have the same. The goal with these 3-year grants was to get localities in a position that with economic development shifts and changes and all the infrastructure investment, that you would have enough to sustain it. But if it doesn't look like that trajectory is going to work in a 1-to-1, I need a little help there, because we're underwriting a lot, and I don't mean that as a negative, but some of those lawmakers bristle when I and the underwriting everything. Let's figure out, a 6-year, where we've got sort of goals that localities meet. We don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. Doesn't help us have a statewide situation if there's no local policing. State police want you to have local law enforcement. Local law enforcement wants to know they have enough folks that they can be good partners for state police. So I'm happy to look at that. You are not the first local leader to identify. That's a bit of a hard pill to swallow. We're trying to figure it out. But that was the intent over the 3-year. Last thing about that, no magic. It was the only way I was going to get that money was if it's sunset. So I'm interested in staying the course. And that was part of why we also did return to work. So that as things sort of shifted, you could, because people care about you, people want to stay in Angel Fire, law enforcement retires, now they can have their pension and stay at work so they get another 5 or 8 years if they're willing. So I think a lot of those tools were all intended to sort of bridge, but I am interested in anything that draws more law enforcement and first responders and treats them with dignity and respect in the salaries that we give them and their families over the long haul. I'd love to see New Mexico be the place that we have the best situation in America. That's my goal.
I'd just like to finish by saying I'm a former county commissioner here, and I'm not saying this Angel Fire is doing okay with our law enforcement, but I know that our other municipalities, Cimarron, Springer, Maxwell, they don't have the tourism dollars that we have, and they are really struggling. And those size of communities need a lot of help. Thank you.
Fair point, and thank you. Please tell me that this, oh gosh.
Good evening, Governor. My name is Rick Clark, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Republican Party here in Colfax County. And my question for you is, how open and receptive will you be with the incoming Trump administration in securing the southern border? And will you work with ICE and Tom Holloman in removing individuals who've entered the state illegally?
A couple of things about that, and thank you for being a leader in your community, sir. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming tonight. So I made a public statement, and I'll make it again, which is there, in a variety of my jobs, including this one, I have agreed with many federal administrations and disagreed with many of them. So as you know, we are finishing up, I don't know where it goes from here, but we sued the Biden administration over enforcement of putting toxins into our water system. So I got no trouble, doesn't matter to me what party, if it's not good for us, I don't like it. In the last Trump administration, not your question, they proposed these economic opportunity zones, which are really good. And we were all about it, and we're happy to receive it. I think it's an unfair criticism of too many Democratic states and border governors like me that I want them to pass a bipartisan border deal. I was in Congress when there was a chance to do that, and I would know because I wrote that bill. And I was working with then Senator McCain, and I had the votes in the Senate. And former President Trump wasn't going to sign it, didn't really want that bill. So I'm going to push them really hard, put your money where your mouth is. Because I don't have the kind of police powers, only Border Patrol, and there aren't enough of them, and they will tell you that they have a good working relationship with us, including in our last several busts for both drug trafficking and human trafficking, of which I have no tolerance for. Third, I do have the Guard there, and I do have state police there. And you want to get a criminal out of my state? I'm all in. I already meet every single ICE requirement for a deportation removal already, and I will keep doing that. Where I might disagree with a political platform is here. Mass deportations and separating of families, I think, is unconstitutional, and for me as an elected leader, and I am not looking for everyone to agree with me or not to agree with me, but you've asked me a question and I want you to get an answer so that you know where I'm going to be. I'm not going to cooperate with that if I don't think it's legal. Now, you might say to me, well, you just got mad at the police. Well, those laws are on the books. I'm inviting them to pass the laws so that there's real clarity. I'm worried about kids, I'm worried about families, I'm worried about ag workers. I have zero tolerance for a bad actor. Zero. Whether you've been here for 10 years committing bad acts or you just came across. You committed a felony or even a misdemeanor here, there are consequences. There is a debate for the audience about whether states like mine, consider coming across seeking asylum as that illegal act. I don't, and I'm actually one of the folks who tried to bring back a lot of veterans who were deported, who were not citizens, who were promised that they would be citizens if they served our country. There's a lot of imbalances here, but I'd like New Mexico to do right by New Mexicans, which is we deserve a new immigration law that holds people accountable. We deserve more Border Patrol and ICE agents, both. We deserve clarity about making sure that every border state isn't getting what they need in order to uphold the federal laws and the state laws. I'm worried about cross-state trafficking. So I think New Mexicans should, I hope, feel pretty assured that I'm going to have a good work relationship. I mean, I worked with Trump as a governor before, and we did some good work together, and we disagreed about some other stuff. And I think that's likely to be the case. But I really am working hard to get that border bill passed, because I think we need more enforcement tools. And thank you for asking the question. And here's one, if he tries to repeal, and he will, I think, the Affordable Care Act, I'm going to testify that that's not a good idea. So I just want you to know where I'll be, and everyone here has a right to agree, maybe agree, think about it, or disagree, and make sure that the president-elect and everyone else is clear about where you stand. That's a good democracy. And again, it's nice to say hello to you. Thanks for being here tonight.
All right, Madam Governor, thank you again for being here tonight. And I want to reach out to you and say a few things about our community. Raton and our surrounding communities are can-do communities. We try to solve our problems within our communities. I was remiss in stating not stating before that I'm the president of our Crime Stoppers Committee here, and we've got some of our members here sitting with us. We also, let me kind of reach back in our history, go back about 2 years. We had a lot of break-ins in this community, specifically not only just homeowners, but our business owners. 80 people got together at our local K-Bobs here, and out of that group, a board was formed called the Raton Business Owners Task Force. And these people sitting here behind me are all part of that task force. And they've all come tonight to show their presence and to let you know that we are doing what we can in our community to deal with our own problems. So I want to thank them all for being here and for being a part of this committee for the last 2 years. Now on to my next question. Thank you, guys. This community, Raton, and I'm going to include Maxwell, Springer, Cimarron, Ute Park, and the surrounding areas. Lots of ranchers out in our areas. This area is in dire need of an urgent care clinic. Dire need. We have folks in this group tonight that have been flown out. Many folks in this community have been flown out. We have daily flights out of our hospital, taking people from our area to areas where they can receive medical care that is not given here in this town. We're just too small to give that. That's a detriment to our community. It's a safety concern. What can you do, or what can you comment on that can help us look forward to better health care in this community?
A couple of things, and you're right, although I might be a little bossy, if you're flying people out, and everyone is, and urgent care is not going to help you mitigate that, because it's not the right level of care. And urgent care will help fill some of the gaps for primary care, not comprehensively, but you're worried that you've got pneumonia, you need your vaccine's up to date, you had a fall and you need stitches, all of that, and those are all important. If you have to drive 2 or 3 hours to get that, that's a huge issue, so not lost on me. 2 years ago, I proposed, how much, was it 250 million? Yeah, 200 million? Or is that what I got? I got 80. I proposed several hundred million for a thing called the Rural Healthcare Delivery Fund. So it's just a direct mechanism to get money. So communities, you don't need me to decide, even though I just barked at you about an urgent care. It's not my job to decide exactly what you need here. It's the communities does that, and then we figure it out. I have to tell you, it was a heavy lift getting it through, but now that we've got it, we run out of that money quick. And I'm going to have, she keeps saying secretary designate because she's brand new and she's got to get confirmed, but she's the secretary. And she's amazing. We can look at a grant and make sure that this has got a top priority when we get another series of funding. We have ways to build out community health centers. We've increased Medicaid rates. We pay the highest rates in America for behavioral health and nearly the highest for everything else. We just got a waiver approved by the federal government that's going to pump in at least $1.5 billion into your hospitals, which allow them to kind of expand and right size. I think med-mal is still a problem in the state. I'm really cranky about it. I think people don't think I'm cranky about it. Make no mistake, I'm really cranky. I'm a lawyer. I'm mad at the trial lawyers. I'm actually mad at the medical society, equally mad at both parties. I want more there. We've removed co-pays. We've created new certifications. We are completely underwriting the costs of new clinical care and outpatient surgical centers, which most states aren't doing, but because we have money, we can do that. So I'm 1,000% in to just sort of leapfrogging the status quo. We don't have the luxury to wait anymore. So if you've got some specific delivery ideas, we're in. We've got some resources, and if we're out for this calendar year, fiscal year, we're going to get more, I have no doubt. And the money that's coming to the hospital, we need to make sure that they're leveraging it. It's a bunch. And I don't know about a primary care clinic or a community health center here, but they've got more money coming in. So we should probably, if you don't mind, your group or even the economic groups and business leaders, I'd love for you to spend a little time with Secretary de Blassie. She's an expert about how to go from concept to actual direct delivery. But this is an area I'm really disappointed in for the state. Not angry, we've done a lot. Just the climate there, and I think this is valuable. We don't have enough law enforcement officers in America. They just do not exist anymore. We don't have enough paramedics. We don't have enough ambulance drivers. We don't have enough firefighters. We don't have enough teachers, and we do not have enough healthcare providers. If we mandated in America right now that you could only, as a licensed doctor or provider, any practice, nurses, everything, that your only patients could be veterans, there's not enough in America to meet just that need. They don't exist. People don't want to be doctors anymore. Thanks. I swallowed wrong. I apologize. So there's a giant frog living right in my throat. We are also trying to do, and we are, license reciprocity, streamline training, compact so that you can be licensed in Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and split up practices. So we're doing all of those things. It is having an impact statewide. It's not enough. So if there's any idea that you don't think we've explored, I'm into it. All of it. We've even put up billboards to tell doctors that this is a place where they can practice, get fully reimbursed, and they'll like New Mexico. So we're trying everything. We did have a lot of interest, but some of the med-mal and some of the related issues have re-clarified for me that we have a long way to go. And like I said, I'm gonna just sort of bypass the advocates for medical malpractice because I'm just tired of waiting. But that's really what's going on. No state has enough, and this state was always underwater, always, because of an antiquated way in which they used Medicare. Medicare is where you make your money, not anymore in healthcare, but that's where you make your money. The feds made an artificial decision about small states, and at the time, literally, New Mexico got the worst end of that deal. And because of that Medicare rule, we never got we had the lowest Medicare rates in America. So if that's where you made your money, as a hospital or a doctor's, and you had low, because we were poor, Medicaid rates, then as a result, those match your private insurance reimbursement rates. We couldn't make enough money. Now that's changed. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm really proud of that. I mean, we are paying a lot, and we should. I want them to move here, stay here. I want residents to get trained here. I'm thinking about endowing the medical school. We're going to double the number of students that can go to nursing and med school. I have to have clinics, so I want you to have a clinic where a doctor that's getting trained in Albuquerque or Las Cruces can come here and get their clinical or residency done. So I'm into all of it. But I just wanted people to know, it's not that the last governor did a terrible job, or the governor before that, or the governor before that. We didn't get treated fairly. I don't think they intended that in that Medicare rule in the 60s, but that's what happened. So now we have to use state funds to catch up, and catch up we will. But we've got probably 36 months. I think that's about 36. I'll be gone, and I'll get no credit. So if you need a ranch hand, I'll be available, because it'll be the only job in America I can still get. Things will really turn around. But your hospitals are going to be in good shape this next fiscal year, really good shape. So they should help. Okay, I know that was long-winded, but I think it's useful to know why things here don't seem like it's so easy. And I hope that's useful. If not, just tell me to be quiet.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Todd Tatum. I'm the new,
There we go.
new commissioner of Colfax County, and I'm a fire chief for Ute Park. We have lots of trouble with our fire EMS. We are primarily a volunteer force in this county. We are grateful to Angel Fire and Raton and their faith force. But through our central district, we're all volunteers, even our EMTs. And where I am, our water source is a hose in a river. We're trying to get water, and where we can get hydrants and fill up quicker. We're held to the same standard as big fire departments. We have big, expensive equipment that has to be on the truck, but we cannot use it because we don't have the water supply to use the equipment. We've been recruiting. Most of my crew is in their 60s and 70s. Our biggest thrill was we got 3 new members in their 40s. The younger generation has no community join, or whatever you want to call it. I would like to be able to do something for these people that leave their jobs, leave everything to drop and run to the Ute Park fire, Ute Park floods. We had people show up from everywhere to assist us. I am extremely grateful. From other states, communities, Taos, Clayton, everywhere. But we have to concentrate on our public safety. We got a sheriff's department that is losing people due to what you're paying state police. And I'm not saying cut them, God bless them. They put their lives on the line for us every day. But we have to find a medium to bring our sheriff's department up to par so we quit losing people. We have a small village on the interstate, had 3 policemen when this started. Now they can barely afford 1. And it just keeps snowballing. And this county does not have the funds and the income to keep up with the higher rates.
Well, I'm going to argue they do, because we're paying for it. But I think the point was made that there's some trepidation about the short term of that. It's not intended to create trepidation. It's intended to create opportunity to think about how we all do that. Because I have to do the same thing in my state budget. I have to figure out every time I do a raise for a group, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, and then get that into a sustainable format. So I need to look at that again, because that was never the intent to create that trepidation. So I've heard that twice tonight. That's very valuable to understand why it's not sort of taking hold the way that we thought. So that's helpful. Thank you. And I think we can figure that out. It's the term everyone is using, it makes me bristle, is that we're professionalizing our volunteer fire departments. You already are professionals. They know exactly what they're doing. They save lives every day. They respond all of the time. They solve problems in their community. But there's a large investment and strategy to deal with now the growing liability of not being able to recruit and hold and have equipment that doesn't quite work. I'm a little embarrassed to tell you, I don't know how much is in it. I don't know if anybody up on my team remembers what our new fire bill is going to look like. Do you, General? You're fired. The only reason you're here is to help me on the stuff I don't know. So I'll get the details. I just can't remember them. But we're aware that this is a growing risk for the state. And I think the strategies in this particular proposal coming out of our office are pretty darn good. I need your opinion. Because if I'm missing something, I don't want to wait until middle of the session. So if you don't mind if I get you that concept draft to you ASAP, and you're not going to hurt my feelings if you hate it, or if you've got suggestions. I just want to make sure it's right. But we're aware this is a growing problem. What to do about the water source, I'm going to have to think about that and make sure that we assess how many communities have the newer equipment but no ability to really get the right water resource, so we have to think about that. I don't have a quick answer, but again, we want this infrastructure to work, we want this equipment to be made available and to work. So I think we have some strategies prepared for this session that make sense, but I might be missing a couple of different aspects. That would be all right with you if I got you that proposal and you tell me what you think? All right. And you have me at hello on this 3 years is not enough to create enough stability in some of these smaller communities. So I need to take a look at that and redefine that in some way. So I'll do that because I'm committed. That rising tides need to lift all boats. State police are ill-equipped to manage all of the public safety, both prevention, just having police, community policing, for 15 minutes in the same spot every day, where they know you're going to be right there in that front row for 15 minutes, will reduce crime dramatically. Just having them. We don't have them, we don't have those benefits. So we wanted policing available everywhere, not just in the state police. So thank you for raising that in this community meeting. It's very helpful for us to get that right size, sir. Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming to our community. My name is Robert Gonzalez. I was born here, raised here, made my living here, and probably buried here. But I want to get off the subject a little bit, and I think it's public safety. And it's I-25 corridor is a major intersection or highway. The Raton Pass project has been going on for over 3 years, I think, and it's horrible. The potholes that are there, they seem like they patch them up, and 2 or 3 days later, they're back again. Why is this project taking so long? We're going to have another major project on
87, are we going to have the same problems? We have a lot of complaints about people going over the pass, and it just seems to me like it's just dragging on, and we have tourists coming in, they're ruining their cars. And ask the local people here going over to Trinidad, it's a hassle going over there. Why is this project taking so long? And the project on 87, is that going to be the same deal?
Well, we don't want projects taking longer than they should. And it's going to sound like an excuse, and I don't even know. I need to check into how much money we appropriated, who the contractors are, and I'll get the secretary right on it. We don't want anything delayed. There are three things going on. One is I don't have enough road construction crews to meet the needs of all the different investments in the state. Two, or to keep up with the weather. Two, well, weather and fires. I mean, the DOT, they're the folks that replace those bridges, that do all the debris removal. So it's a ton, not an excuse, just it's clear there's a disconnect. We're actually having trouble getting enough money from the feds and the state for routine maintenance and enough personnel to really do the work and enough for contractors. And with all the money I'm talking about, it is billions. It is shocking that I have to make the case that we need more money for roads. Part of the problem, and I'm not trying to scare anyone, just the way in which we routinely fund roads so that you have enough contractors, enough personnel, enough equipment for everything that you're doing so that you can meet the timelines for your different projects, is they fund roads by gas taxes. In New Mexico, including me, I've gotten several proposals for increasing the gas tax. For what we need for roads, it's probably too low. I have bristled. I don't want another gas tax. I'm trying to lower taxes, trying to find other ways to meet these needs. I want New Mexicans' economic security to be bolstered, not the reduction. And the only way, I'm not saying that the only way to fix it and be on time is to have a gas tax, but just to let you know, it hasn't been as easy for us to get road funding. There really isn't a good reason when we're behind our timelines. That is not good. We just exceeded our timeline at La Bajada. So if we can do it there, we ought to be doing it here. So I don't have an answer for you, but I will get to the bottom of it. And I don't like delays, and I certainly don't want bad roads or potholes. And not only does it make us look bad, it is not safe, and our roads ought to be safe. And we have far too many public safety issues related to our highways, including drivers who need to be held accountable, both. So thank you for alerting me. I'm going to take a look at it right away, and I'll make sure the mayor gets information, and I'll have them put it out on the website because I don't have an answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. And I'm not proposing a gasoline tax. That's just for New Mexicans. You're going to have to start thinking about these things. And that's the only reason I want to provide it. Some governor, not me, is going to have to deal with that.
Good evening. I'm Laura Trimble. I'm a Ratonian. And I think it falls on the heel of a couple of things I've heard people say. And that's the public safety of the signage that is so sun-faded that you can't see. When people get off I-25 on the 6487 exit, the stop signs with the sun's out, they're bleached white. You can't see them. And I know that's a problem intersection. I took pictures of some of the exchanges here, the signs of how they look to somebody in a car with a dog in the back. And I also went up Highway 72 up toward Johnson Mesa because there are more people who are coming in and making the loop that comes off 6487, goes up through Capulan, Folsom, past the Buffalo Antiquitous archaeological site, Johnson Mesa Church, and coming back down. And all of the signage along there is, one, I know the winds are terrible up there, it's gone, or it's so sun damaged or bullet ridden, anything you can imagine. And a lot of them are even the mile markers. And I know that when you're engaging, if you're having trouble, and they say, where are you? One of the identifiers you use is a mile marker, and you can't even tell. And New Mexico is so beautiful. And if the signage can prevent accidents, then we're allowing our firefighters, EMS, Sheriff's Department to deal with other things instead of that. And I'm very proud of the fact of Sugar State Park and everything that's opening up there. And I just think if we can, along with budget and everything, get things up to snuff so that people can traverse this countryside safely.
Do you have a sense? Yeah, give us your photos. Thank you so much for taking the time and trouble to do that. So on state roads, highways, that's my job. On local roads, it's the local government. I've been dying to blame the mayor for something. And I don't think this is my chance either. I think these are state roads, darn it. I don't like you anymore, Mr. Mayor. How many signs do you think we're behind on for the state roads? Does anybody have a guess? 100 signs, 50 signs, including mile markers?
I'd say
100? Yes. How much does
That's
this?
just on 72.
We'll focus on 72 for a start, not that we would start and then end there.
Right.
How much does a sign cost? This is now, here's one. Mr. Mayor, how much does a sign cost? You gotta earn your doll, I don't know how much you get.
I'm not sure, Governor, I haven't practiced signing.
Oh, here we go. I don't know how much they cost either. I will commit right now that the general will find money for 100 signs. Talk about holding a grudge, General. Good. Yeah, 5 minutes has passed. You've been rehired. Everyone knew. I'll commit to those 100 signs. If not, then we're not going to do all of them. We're doing all the Welcome New Mexico signs. We've replaced all the major intersection signs along I-25 and I-40. All may be a stretch, a lot of them. But we have not kept up in some of the other areas. I'm whiny. I don't always get the budget I ask for, but it's just a set of excuses. We need to do better. And sometimes it's the power of being in your community where someone says, please, for goodness sakes, do better. And I'll get those signs done. The hard part is I won't be able to do them for the entire state unless I get a little more money in our coffers. But let's start right here, right now. And I'm also committed to looking at the entire area. Thank you for raising it.
And in the governor's defense, we did talk about this earlier.
We did, and I already promised it was easy. But I was going to give her credit. Yeah, big mistake, man. This was all your idea, man. I wasn't going to do it for the mayor anyway, but you are very persuasive. Again, it's late, and I probably shouldn't be abusing your very important time by being silly, but I appreciate that you forgive me for what's in my DNA. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Connie Martinez, and I really don't have a question, but I did want to bring something to your attention. Earlier, we were discussing medical services that we're losing in our community. And just recently, I found out that I could no longer get a mammogram here. The last time I had a mammogram, we had Assured Imaging, which was a mobile imaging service that came here, and I was able to get it there. So within the last few weeks, I made an appointment with my primary care provider, requested a referral for a mammogram, and the closest that I can get one is either Santa Fe or Albuquerque. And I just can't believe that. We have a new CEO, apparently, of our rural hospital here, and the previous CEO was actually one of the highest paid state employees in New Mexico. And here we are losing our medical services. And this hospital here can't provide a mammogram. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you for your courage to share a personal story. Women's health services are particularly challenging. Even worse is women of childbearing age, and I'm not opining about you, ma'am, just that we don't have enough OBGYNs available in the state and the country. I'll bet we can get that fixed. So if you hadn't come tonight, and you hadn't stayed this late, and you didn't have the courage to talk about your own healthcare issues, I wouldn't have known until too many women didn't get access nearby to a mammogram. And I might, be a little, and I don't mean to sound defensive, that healthcare is really complicated. It really is rocket science. It should not be in this country. I bristle about it all of the time. These professionals make a ton of money. If we don't pay them, we don't get them. We can't keep our hospitals accredited and licensed. Other folks won't come. It's not an excuse. I do expect them all to be effective leaders, and they know how to reach us. They got no trouble calling me when they need a capital improvement. So that's another one. Signs, check. It may be mobile to start, and I don't know how much it is to get an actual, get the right equipment here. And then it might still have to be read by some radiologists that are not here or traveling here. That's even harder. We will figure something out, and everything else I've committed to. Longer than 3-year grants by getting more money, so I got to get it, but I'm pretty good at getting money. For police officer salaries, making sure that we get the bills for the volunteer fire departments, making sure that we're really getting at some of this other infrastructure that people have identified. We will follow up on all of it, and I'll make sure that our budget reflects your priorities to the highest degree possible. On it, on it. Thank you.
Hello, Governor. My name is Nathaniel Montoya, and I have a special needs son that I have been having to educate for the last year and a half on my own at home, homeschooling. I obviously don't have the budget the state has, but I've been able to get more results than his previous schools. Is there any sort of thing in the legislative session coming up that can help parents like me that are dealing with not being able to get our special needs children educated because the education in the state, excuse me for saying this, subpar, especially when it comes to special needs children? We're still using words in the state such as SPED, which is a derogatory abbreviation. The special needs children in the state, they're not taken seriously. My son has been homeschooled for a year and a half.
How old is your son?
My son is 14 years old now. He survived an anoxic brain injury at birth, and I was told he would never walk, talk. He was never able to be verbal, anything like that. He was supposed to have cerebral palsy. And throughout this whole time, I've been trying to get him educated in Las Vegas, New Mexico, as well as here. I've had a very difficult time. Some of the issues in San Miguel County, the lady couldn't get a doorknob for a door because the kids kept opening the door and getting it out. A simple doorknob. But that school got a jumbotron for their football team. I don't understand how we're letting these special children just fall through the cracks.
I wish I was in a position right here to tell you that that's not typical and that what you're suffering through isn't occurring. So if you think I'm mad about public safety, I am really mad at schools about special education. And I try to kind of take it away and have the state be more responsible. So again, remember I started with telling people that most New Mexicans, because I asked them, think I can just tell judges what to do. And it's not a mean thing to say about New Mexicans. I just believe I can just fix it. So their sense is I just won't do it. I don't have very much power over schools. We have local control, which I should let everyone know I believe in. I'm a pass-through, by and large. I just get money, I send it to the schools. Most of the things, special education is not one of them. Most of the things that we want schools to do, like for example, actually teach kids to read. It's called the science of reading. In Mexico, until now, wasn't doing it at all, but the second most of us turn around and walk out of the school, they stop teaching it. So I'm a bit cranky about public schools. I want outcomes. I've done They revert hundreds of millions of dollars for things that belong to the students and the parents. So I'm a bit cranky. I'm not winning that battle in the legislature. And I'll get some more mandatory pieces, but I'm likely not to get enough, and I bristle about that. I am furious for you. It's not a very good response, that I have an emotional response. We finally finished a bunch of audits. They wouldn't let us do audits. We went to court against the schools. We're nearly in a consent decree for our failure to meet the needs of special education students in the state. It's an outrage. Largely Hispanic and Native American students are caught up in that design. It's wrong. It's also illegal. I've got a school in Vegas that's already in as an audit finding and is under investigation for failure to provide basic required special education. I say that to the group, the audience here, because everything Ms. Father is saying is true and then some. So I'd like to do three things. One, I'd love to meet you and your son and send my special education secretary and ombudsman out here. Make sure that you get resources and support to do everything from PT, OT, and educational support. It's not so easy to do it for homeschooling and the way in which the funding works, so I'm going to have to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out because when I figure it out with you, we're going to figure it out for other parents because I am outraged. They have the resources. You're not wrong that they spend it every other place, and rural schools are giving me a bigger run for my money on doing right by these students. So I'm sure I can do better for you and your family and your 14-year-old son who deserves equality in the state's education system. And for everybody else, here, it's a federal law. So I'm really upset about it. I'm sorry that you're having to go through that. I'm really proud of you as a parent, not that you need that. And my sister was a special needs kiddo. My parents found themselves having to find schools in other states and other situations and other supports because when she went to public school, my sister was placed in a closet by herself with no education. And we haven't gone far enough, and that was in the 60s. So I'm outraged, and I should be. Would you let me come and meet your son? Will you help me make sure that I get a package delivered to you, and then we're going to figure it out for everybody else. But if you're interested, I'm going to make another run at being responsible for special education at the state level and not have all of it run through the schools because they are not meeting the needs of these kiddos and their families. And I'm really angry about it. But you should know I've tried, it's like public safety, I've tried on many occasions, and I have not won the legislature over. But thank you for standing up for your family. I'm with you.
It's me again, and I wasn't trying to give a loaded question when I talked about the sheriffs. I just don't know why they're not working together. It's like, no, this is mine, and that's a bunch of BS. And talking about the towns, that don't have police or whatever. Actually, I lived in California for 52 years. I was on a reserve deputy for San Bernardino County, and I also was going to go and be a highway patrolman, but we had an incident with 4 highway patrolmen that got killed right as they came out of the academy. But what I was getting back to, in our little town that we lived in California, and we had, if you've been in the area of Southern California and the eastern part of Southern California, to include San Bernardino County, which is like the largest county in the United States, the law enforcement is mostly with either the county and or the highway patrol. In this instance, I'm just talking about because we have our state police, I guess, slash highway patrol here with us. And some of these little towns that don't have a presence, what they did is they had the state and with the county in San Bernardino. In the northern part, they did some. Orange County, they did some. Riverside County, and also San Diego. But they had these towns that were really the few and far between. They had put in lot homes, redid them, and/or modulars, and set them up with places for the cops, that's the easiest way for me to say that, to live. And mainly, it was a lot of bachelors. We didn't have many women then, but they do now. But anyhow, they set them up so that that little town, you know, this little town of 500 people had some presence. They usually had 3 to 4 patrolmen, but then they came in with a rotation thing, like, we'll be here for a month and I'll go back to my other one. And that was kind of a semi-volunteer, no, you're going kind of thing. And I just was saying that I don't know if we could afford it but that's the only way I could see, listening to what was going on, where we could get some police presence in the places that are few and far between.
We do that, and I might have the Secretary talk about how they deploy state police statewide, and they have to live nearby, and they have an area or a district so that we've got a statewide presence. We do not enough housing for our first responders, but in our affordable housing efforts, which have appropriated well over $200 million, and a bunch more is coming at this legislative session. We're calling it workforce housing. So educators, brand new docs, right? They have $500,000 in loans now. I mean, it's shocking, but it's huge. So healthcare providers, educators, firefighters, police officers. We think there's a lot more to be done to do housing that supports kind of a healthy ecosystem for everyone. So that idea is well ingrained in New Mexico. We could do more on the housing side, not for law enforcement. I mean, you used to have to pay to even go to the academy. We don't do that anymore. There's a lot of stuff we've changed. But we focused on mostly educator loan forgiveness and housing. Now everyone can go to college in New Mexico for free. So if we really focus on the housing, I think we've got some really good options. But you want to just talk about how we deploy statewide, but we like this idea. So thank you for raising it. You should expect us to invest more in doing that kind of housing support.
I'm not punting this, Governor, but the chief actually asked to address this, so.
Because you have no idea. That's 2 men who are fired. You got that? That's why they make me do all the talking, because we're teasing. We're a group of good colleagues and experts, but we don't know everything. And sometimes the mistakes that we made are born from thinking that we do. So hold us accountable. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Governor. So all of these several examples that you gave are various things that we do here in New Mexico, but as the Governor said, I think that there's definitely some area for expansion. We have several small jurisdictions in the state that have either contract law enforcement services with state police. Up and around this area, we have Pecos, Chama. Both of those places have contract services with state police. Other areas have contracts with the various sheriff's departments around the state. And we do have some housing. You talked about kind of the voluntold method. I mean, that is a challenge at times, right? We can provide the incentive of, hey, we have either, whether it be free housing or cheaper housing for officers to live in certain areas. But really, we have a commuting policy. And so if officers are willing to park their car and drive on their own time to go back to whatever area that they live in, that's a little bit out of our purview to be able to force them to live in a certain area. And so
But
that's
your coverage requires that we have coverage in these areas.
no, for sure. So during their shift, we can dictate where they have to be at, and we can station them there. And they have, they have commuting distance of how far they have to live there if they're going to have their unit. But if they want to drive to wherever when they're off shift on their own time and drive an hour and a half to live because they want to live somewhere else, that's a little bit beyond our control. But we're trying to incentivize that, and we're looking for additional ways. So, any suggestions we're definitely open to help further incentivize that when it comes to having officers in our rural areas. Because it's a challenge, and we've talked a lot to the rural law enforcement. It's a challenge for us too to get officers that want to live and stay in some of the more rural areas, which is why we really focus on trying to recruit individuals from places like Raton so that we can get those individuals to go back to Raton, stay there, be members of the community because that's where they're from or that's where they want to raise their family. We are really lucky that in this particular district or the sub-district up here, we do have a lot of local individuals, and this is the area that a lot of officers either come back to or they come here out of the academy and they do stay. We don't have a lot of turnover up here, so I would commend the community because that's a reflection on you all that people come to this community, our officers do, and that they want to stay up here and they want to be part of this community. Thank you.
If I could just expand a little bit on some of the operations statewide. 2021, my first day on the job in August of 21, deployed 50 state police officers to the Albuquerque metro area for some operations there to have a positive impact on crime in Albuquerque. We've done that several times since, and so it was really, literally, day one on the job that I really noticed the difference from the community that I previously served. I came from a community, city of Rio Rancho, worked there for 27 years. Primarily, we worked in the metropolitan area. What's really special about the state police here, they're not just a highway patrol, which some people might seem that way. That they really mobilize across the entire state, and that's why I gave credit to the commander earlier for whatever the challenges are. And so when there was the balloon fiestas in Albuquerque, you'll see many of them. We mobilize them, they stay there for a couple of weeks, and they work that challenge. The State Fair, currently been working on housed operations, Santa Fe and Albuquerque. And these are not just uniform services that are assigned to the district. A lot of those are coming from far and around. I mentioned a little while ago about the fires and the flooding. And so it really is very unique in what they do, and I think I touched on it very briefly during the introduction. There's really not a problem that we're not willing to take on. We have communities that ask for assistance, much like the gentleman did here in the front row was talking about kind of narcotics. We send Crime Suppression Bureau, whatever it might be. We always strive and do our very best to get to yes. Now, sometimes, complaints are in the queue. Naturally, we only have so much manpower. Our manpower numbers are low as well. I know we've heard some concerns about some of the Sheriff's Department or municipal agencies concerned about the ability to recruit. We struggle with the same thing. And so, as a result, we would love to be able to do way more than what we're doing. They're doing a fantastic job, but with more manpower, we can certainly do more. We're all struggling with that, but the reality really is they're not a highway patrol or New Mexico State police officers, whether it's uniformed services or any one of the specialized units across the entire state's Investigations Bureau for any homicide in New Mexico, where assistance is required. We respond out to those officer-involved shootings. We investigate all of those across the state as needed. So there really is a tremendous footprint that New Mexico State Police has across the state of New Mexico, and we'll continue to do our very best to try to serve whichever community needs the help. Thinking of it.
Hello, my name is Pamela Martinez. I have a 79-year-old neighbor, and last week her heat went out. We've had very cold night temperatures around here, but her heat went out, and we had to find her someone to fix it, her furnace, and it took about 2 days to get somebody there to check the furnace, and then now tomorrow she might get the part a week later to get the furnace fixed. But she's 79 years old, living in a cold house.
Living in a...
What's that?
Oh, you just say living in a cold house?
Cold house,
Okay,
because her furnace is broke. And it took us all a week to get the part, and it took 2 days just to get someone up there. So I think it's a real safety issue because, I mean, she's got 2 little heaters. She's been opening her oven door, but she's living in a very cold house with very cold temperatures, and this next weekend it's going to be extremely cold here. So we have a problem with not having enough help getting to these people that have broken furnaces in extremely cold weather.
It's a very powerful point. I have a couple of questions. I don't know if you can answer them or not, but one, I'll send our aging secretary, I'll have her first thing in the morning check with the senior services. I'm always surprised when the local programs aren't reaching out. That's part of what we pay them to do. So the mayor's shaking his head. I'll bet he'll make a call in the morning. Second thing is, if it's possible, if your 79-year-old neighbor is willing to be, is she ambulatory and able to take care of herself except for this heat issue? Do you think she would let us put her up in a hotel room for a couple of weeks until her home is all ready to go and done?
I don't think so.
Okay, well.
Her doctor wanted her to told us things with her.
Well, this wouldn't be a permanent thing, so I mean, I think we should explore that, because you're not wrong that these really cold temperatures are a significant issue for people who are living alone, who may not have resources, or who have older homes that can give out. And if we're waiting for parts, it is no small thing that someone actually could perish from the cold. So I'm aware. And I'll help the mayor and the senior program figure out doing an assessment for everyone. Something that if we have a really bad cold snap, I know that the temperatures this week have dropped. I can't remember how long we're expecting those drops, but we have in fact sent state police and others door to door with any number of supplies. Small temporary heaters are really effective. They can be the newer ones, less so for fire danger, but not any of them are perfect. But I'd be interested in getting where folks can have fires and can do that, firewood, heaters, wellness checks, and using the senior program. But again, if you don't mind giving us your contact information, and your neighbor doesn't have to let me do anything. Independent, gets to make her own decisions, but if she'll let us be more helpful, doesn't require that she leave, but we can get her in a warm, paid-for environment until we get everything running well, and if she wants. But you have me at hello. We'll get on those issues right away.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just was dementia, so she doesn't really understand, she wants to be in her home with her dog, period.
Yeah, we would move the dog and her temporarily to a place of her choosing. I'm very persuasive on that end. I may not be able to get the legislature, but you should see me with retirees. So I might, she'd be willing to talk to me. I might be able to talk her into it. But otherwise, she doesn't have to do anything she doesn't want to do. And we'll do everything we can to make her safe. It's designed and agreed to by her, and then let's do more for the community, because we're gonna have a cold couple of weeks, I think. So thank you for caring about your neighbor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a couple more comments.
Sure.
One is, you were talking earlier about where it's mandated that drug addicts get treatment when they're in trouble with the law. And I'm all in favor. And I'll tell you, I have a son that's a drug addict, 45 years old. I've done everything to try to get him help, and he will not get help. And he went to jail for a couple of things in the past, and had it been mandated that he go to drug treatment and not get out, I would have loved it. I would have loved that. But being a mother of a drug addict is very difficult, and if it's absolutely, you have to do it, or you're not going to get out of jail, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Well, I could use your voice in the legislature, and again, it's just a phone call. I hope it doesn't sound as if I'm saying to everyone in this community, don't go to work, just drive to Santa Fe every day. That's a bridge too far for most New Mexicans, but a phone call is very powerful. And if, you can come, we have the towns come, the counties come, the senior centers come, and we can get you there and get free transportation and get you fed and stuff, that's really helpful too. You need to hear these stories. There's not a family, in my view, or opinion, or experience in New Mexico, not one, who hasn't suffered directly or indirectly from somebody else in their family who's been negatively impacted by drugs or alcohol. I certainly have. I'm certainly struggling now with someone in my family. And it is really hard on those families. And if we have tools that give people a shot at getting well, we should be using them. It's not widening. This commitment bill would not say everyone, everywhere, but it would in fact help in those circumstances. And I get families, it's heartbreaking, who find a way to call me, and I'm grateful to them for spending the time to find my number or call the office, and they want us to do something. They want us to tell the hospital to keep their son or daughter or to get someone in treatment, but their son or daughter can just walk away. There's no legal mechanism to provide that treatment. And it's heartbreaking, and I cannot tell you how many parents have lost an adult child.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for your courage. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions or comments? Very, very good.
I do. I was just out of coffee, so that worked out great, although my coffee is ice cold. But I'll drink it any temperature. Thank you for creating this sort of informal but welcoming and kind discussion. Thank you everyone for your ideas and for folks who have committed to help us in one area or another. We're grateful. I appreciate you. I know it's hard to stay out this late, and I have a tendency to be too long-winded. I apologize to you. I don't do it on purpose. I always think it creates a better understanding if folks know what makes me tick and why I might have made a decision one way or the other. And we want to come back. Let's keep investing and strategizing here. This is a lovely, beautiful community. My great-grandfather was the largest sheep rancher in Union County for a long time. And Union and Colfax were near and dear to his heart. So, of course, they're near and dear to my heart, too. Let's do more. Let's do better. Hold us all accountable. I have a sense you will, and expect us to keep coming back. Thank you very much for your time tonight. It means a lot to me. Thank you.